Hello and welcome to Killer POV episode 136. I'm one of your hosts, Rob G from Blumhouse.com. With me is Elric Kane.
Yeah, sucking down this water like you wouldn't
the
believe.
Myth, the legend.
Love this water.
It's all because I forgot the beer. Quit giving me shit.
Rebekah McKendry.
Oh, you mean you forgot the beer? No big deal, Bekah. Forget about it.
Forgetter
We'll be fine.
of the six-pack.
I won't hold it against you then.
How many of you already had? You've been next door for like an hour.
No, I drank one beer while I was waiting. That's why we had two.
There's
now
one
we have
beer
one
left and I'm consuming
So
it
I'm not
because
drinking
Elric
water.
had one.
You guys are going to stop midway, go next door, get some more beers. I can't believe that you didn't like bring them back with you in like solo cups.
It's going to be the shortest show in the history of
It is.
Killer
It is,
POV.
Oh
really.
my God.
We can't do this
I don't even
somewhat
think I
sober.
can talk about what I've seen this week.
I have
I'm still in
Benadryl,
shock.
guys. Come on, we can just take
No,
that. It'll be
that's okay.
fine.
He's
It's
drinking
fine.
green tea and eating fruit.
We have such
I
an
had yogurt
exciting...
as well.
Okay.
Good God, you've been eating for the last like 45
I didn't
minutes.
get breakfast or lunch. Like literally, I got up this morning, I had some toast, and then I have not eaten since like 8 a.m. And so yeah, I've been eating
But your
for
purse
like...
is like the never-ending fridge.
Yeah, it's a TARDIS
She
in there.
pulled out like a salad before, and then
Yeah,
all of a
she
sudden
did.
there's like a little thing
Yeah,
of sushi. now there's a bowl of yogurt.
Green tea,
now
yogurt.
there's a giant thing of fruit.
I had all of these things with me to eat throughout the day, and
Remember
I never
they took
got
her
the
abdomen
chance.
out for a
Oh,
while,
right.
and then they
That's what it
replaced
was.
it, and that
There's
must
no
fuck with the
baby
person.
there anymore. It's all food.
Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
filling it with salad, fruit, sushi, and yogurt.
In fact,
So,
it's probably not
yeah.
even her bag she's reaching into. It's actually her stomach. The stitches.
I'm like a kangaroo.
style.
Yeah.
It's
Wouldn't
pretty
surprise
amazing.
me.
All
No
right,
surprise
well,
here.
we do have an amazing guest coming on later, somebody we've wanted to have on for a long time.
But first, I want to talk about that guy last week who gave us 1-star review. I know.
That's already in the past.
But
We're
thank you all
over
for
it.
all the love you
Yeah,
showed.
that
I
was
know.
sweet.
That was sweet. That was sweet.
And don't worry about us having haters. We don't feel like we have haters, actually, so we feel good about it. It was just one person.
We're usually too drunk to notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One
They
person
are.
who
We are.
needed to come
Becca's
up and...
I
normal and doesn't drink
enjoy
with us.
my green tea.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But no, we do appreciate the feedback and the support. And yeah, we love you guys right back. So there you go.
Yeah.
So we got a good guest coming on, but let's hit the latest horrors. Well, I know there's one that I was going to bring up. I read about it on Blumhouse.com last week, and I immediately recommended it to Elric. And it appears that we both have seen it, so we can both talk about it.
I did.
It is The Boy, and not the one with creepy. Here's the thing: there's two really good movies out right now this year, and they're both called The Boy, and they're really good for different reasons.
And you know what's weird? I actually had this thought. I feel like both of them would be a little better. They both
If they
become
had a
great
different
films.
name?
If they took a little from the other. Does that make sense? So like they're both good, and I enjoyed both. But I feel like if the in theaters boy, because it's just pulp entertainment, took a little bit of the artistry from that boy,
Right.
and if the artistic boy took a little bit of the kind of shock and like kind of fun suspense, jump scare, just to make it a little more fun in a way.
Yeah.
If the two kind of if there was a bit of cross-pollination there, if these two boys had gotten together and just been called The Boys,
The boys.
The Boys.
this would have been
The
the great
Boys.
film.
Oh my
Square.
God.
Now,
I
that could have
saw
been a great
somebody
film.
had the DVD. Where is it? I want to see
Oh, he's
it.
got it.
Oh, I have it somewhere here.
Pass it
I'll
on
play it in a
over.
second.
It's a SpectreVision release.
Which is through Scream Factory, right? Or is
Yeah,
this
they
like...
do. They do
Okay.
all their stuff. I guess it's IFC Midnight. That's the deal. Yeah.
Oh, really? A lot of people.
There's a
Oh
lot
no,
of
Chiller
production.
Films. Chiller
Chiller.
Films.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm
The
sorry.
budget
So
would
it's
have
A
Chiller
lot of
Films and
distribution
SpectreVision.
companies involved in this
So
one.
kind of like the Big Fish movie by Fessenden,
Yeah.
which
so
had a
this,
good budget. You look
Wow, I've had this sitting on my desk for like 2 weeks now, and this did not look interesting to me, so I have not watched it. But
It's
you guys
really-
really enjoyed
No,
it.
it's really good, but I don't know if it's in Becca's wheelhouse because it's a
low burn.
It's very slow. It's kind of on the artsy side, but I mean, it's really more of a drama than anything. I wouldn't even classify it as a horror movie.
It's got a lot of Dexter Psycho kind of reference. You don't know
Ah.
that going in, but it has a lot of that kind of childhood dark. It even has a couple references to The Pit, that movie.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
Pit. I mean, not in as fun a way as obviously, but
Yeah, and that's the thing is like the kid. It's David Morse, who's a great actor, who owns a motel out in the middle of nowhere, kind of
Psycho-y.
similar to something else.
Mhm.
And it's just him and his boy. His wife left when the kid was, just born or whatever. And he doesn't really have much of any sort of social life. He collects like roadkill, and his dad pays him for it.
he gets like a quarter every time he brings roadkill in. But
Yeah.
but you learn as it goes that he's really also responsible for the roadkill because he'll put food or garbage in the middle of the road.
Right.
So it's really that's where the darker, I guess, side of his.
Yeah, and
personality
that's what it is. It's like it really slowly. I didn't know where it was going at all, and that's what I found interesting about it. But they kept that weird suspenseful thing where I just constantly thought this little kid we were going to witness him doing something bad to somebody.
Yeah, it was.
And every time they set something up, like the tension was so high that I was like, oh God, is he gonna hurt this other little boy? Like at that one moment, and it's
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
probably the
intense.
strongest part in the middle. The craziest thing about the film was True story. I saw it from Dick Grunner had it after you posted and watched it there, and I did not identify Rainn Wilson. I'm not kidding. He was on screen for about 20 minutes, and I said, "Who is that guy?" I recognize him. He's a big
great.
beard, and he's like,
great.
"It's Rainn Wilson," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
I mean, usually I would recognize him in a second. The beard really changes his face, and I really like him in this movie. I really like the character he's playing. Actually, it's interesting.
Yeah, Rainn Wilson's really good, and obviously he's huge from The Office.
Yeah.
But I feel like his choices post The Office have been really fascinating. Things like this, like he's been doing a lot of weird little indie things. So
he's particularly good in this, and it's a good film. Like, there's moments it's very artistic, very slow, very measured. The kid does an amazing screen because he's on screen in every shot of the movie. There's times where I feel like sometimes maybe the music's going for more attention than the film is, which kind of just at times where I was like, I don't know if you're there. It felt sometimes mismatched, but
right.
But no, it's an interesting movie, and there's certain moments of real dread, and it does build somewhere, which is satisfying. We won't spoil it for you. So, but it's a film that is taking you somewhere. There's like arc, and I've heard the goal was to make a trilogy
of films. Yeah,
I would be surprised if they did in terms of box because it didn't really come out. But maybe if it's made for Chiller, maybe it satisfied what it needed to do. By playing it on air, I guess.
Sure.
Ultimately, and it would be interesting to see 3 films about a character develop, but really it'd just be Psycho, wouldn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
I would imagine
has 4.
Yeah, I would think
Psycho has 4 films
Psycho.
and now an entire show devoted to it. But no, it's really cool. It's interesting. I definitely recommend this one. Let's see. I just want to do this one quick because it's not good. So I'm still on my J horror kick. This last week I went and watched the American version of The Ring, followed by its sequel, The Ring 2, which I never saw.
You didn't see it back in the day?
No, I never saw the second one when it came out, and I didn't realize it's about a 3-year jump because the American Ring was 2002. Ring 2 didn't come out until 2005.
Yeah, interesting.
So you got about 3 years between the movies, and the irony being the second one's directed by the director of the original Ringu.
That's
so
right.
you're like,
yeah,
maybe he'll bring some style to it, but really, it's a pretty awful sequel and
pretty flat from memory.
Very flat. Doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's like they try to change the rules or adjust now it's not about the videotape anymore. Now it's like Samara is chasing them because she wants to take over the boy's body. And then there's all sorts of random weirdness, like something happening at the carnival, and then one scene where they're surrounded by a bunch of CGI deer. In their car.
Wow.
It's just
because in
random...
the first one they had the horse, and they're probably trying to recreate
exactly.
that. The horse scene was cool though in the first one.
Yeah, the horse stuff was neat.
I hate all the horse stuff.
I
think it's nonsense.
When I saw it in theaters, I thought it was cool.
I thought that was super creepy because it was kind of showing that she was messed up from the get-go.
See, and this is what I've come to the conclusion watching the American ones, and why I think J horror remakes were such a fast cycle. Because look. That came out in 2002, and before you knew it, we were into torture porn by 2004. With Saw and Hostel and all that. I think I liked The Ring when it came out, the American one. Watching it now, I didn't like it at all. I think it's well made. I like the opening. I just don't find Samara scary. The cherub-faced, cute little American girl. And I think it's something lost in translation because I find the Japanese ones terrifying. And the other thing is, I posted some prank videos because I'm really into this now. So I'm searching up everything I could find. And there's a video where they do a prank on a studio full of Japanese girls where just on the TV, a scene from the movie comes on and they lose their fucking shit. And I'm like, oh, that really hit a nerve for Japanese pop culture. They see that image and for whatever reason, it's terrifying to them. Whereas I don't find it as scary for American audiences. And that's just the general vibe of remaking those movies. The reason I think the Grudge remake is successful is because it takes place in Japan. They didn't Americanize
I've never seen the
it.
American version of The Grudge.
It's pretty good. I'm going to revisit it because I just bought it. And there's even an R-rated director's cut on the disc. And that's the original guy that did Ju-on directed the American one as well. But I think that one works a little better because it's Sarah Michelle Gellar, an American going to Japan, and it's part of Japan mythology that the legend that follows that movie. So I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm going to keep watching a lot of these movies. I'm excited because this week I'm gonna endure with Andrew Cash Sadako 3D,
Oh my God.
which came out a few years ago.
In theaters or at your house?
No, I have a 3D copy of it. I think it's.
Oh, they actually made like a 3D copy. I remember when it came out, they sent us, I swear I could have like built furniture out of the number that they sent us for trivia. It was like one of those nights where everybody gets a copy of Sadako 3D.
Yeah. I wish, but no, I got a 3D copy of it, so I'm excited. And I hear it's not that good.
Nope.
But it doesn't matter. It's going to be coming out of the screen. And that's what I want to see. So,
wow. I think we should do a J-horror episode, but I definitely want to branch out from Ring and Grudge and do some of the other like
Asian horror
stuff.
And actually, I was having a long debate on my Facebook with Andrew Cash and Jared Rivet and some of the people that we've had on the show before. Cash really wants to be part of that Asian horror one because he actually did school me pretty extensively on it. He lent me, I think, the Ring TV. They did it as a TV movie before they made a movie.
Yeah, it was originally, wasn't it pitched as a student film? And then the student film became a TV show. And it was like an hour-long like TV, like I don't even know how Japanese TV
I know
works,
we posted an article that Elise did that gave the whole breakdown of the history
of it.
I mean, there's a Korean version of The Ring. So it's like, considering how much I love their cinema, I want to see that version too. So I'm slowly making my way through all of them and we'll inevitably do an episode on it. So that's that one. I have a few others, but let's go around the table.
Well, I watched The Boy with You. And the other thing I watched, there's this movie that was going to blow people's minds. Most of you probably haven't seen, called Alien. And it's from 1970. No, it's I showed that to my class this weekend. Man, it holds up so beautifully.
It does.
It actually just goes into like my top maybe 5 movies. I mean, it's just so fun rewatching it. I think it's first time I saw the Blu-ray. I watched the theatrical cut. I showed the theatrical cut, and it's
it's better. It's better than.
And there's one student who hadn't seen it before, so I was so excited that he was going to get to see this for the first time. And everyone else, I could tell after it played, you could tell everyone had, whoa, that's so great seeing it again.
Yeah.
And I said, what'd you think? He goes, yeah, it was a little overrated for me. And I'm just like, no. So that drove me crazy. I was kind of shocked by that.
Well, he's probably seen the Alien versus Predator
he's probably
movies
seen,
or
you've
some
seen
nonsense.
But it really, and what we were doing though, it wasn't just watching Alien, because this is a genre film class. It was watching it after watching Your Next last week and watching it as a slasher film, question mark, like as a slasher film. So the first half is just a pure science fiction movie, a pure science fiction as they set up, go to a planet of the vampires, that, it's that kind of build up. And as soon as it comes out of the chest, then it does change and segues into a very different film with Ripley slowly becoming, and actually a really progressive final girl. It's interesting too, because they always talk about how you have to become more boyish to overcome. And she is boyish the whole movie until just before she has to kill it, she strips down to her underwear. And it's not, but weirdly enough, it's not that sexual. It's more like going, hey, check it out. I'm a woman. I'm about to kick this thing's ass.
No, even when she's in her underwear, she's got it. They make her look very square.
Yeah, she's
it's
still
not
boyish.
Sexy underwear.
I know, but she's still, she's still a woman. And I
feel like
I think it's an interesting reveal. And I think it's actually a progressive portrait of a woman is kicking, like kind of like Your Next. I thought when I watched it. So
what was written? I mean, it was written for a male.
Yeah,
that's that's fact. Ripley could have been anybody.
O'Bannon's version, right?
Yeah. So.
But it's just and the thing is, the big difference with slash film, of course, it hasn't got the same stock characters because we're dealing with blue collar workers, and I think that's my favorite thing about the movie is this like blue collar origins of all these characters, and that they're not a rescue vessel except for Ash, obviously. It's so good, and Harry Dean Stanton is such a joy to watch. And like I kept saying, if I could have any prop on earth, it'd be his hat. I felt so of course I bought one on eBay, like not a real one. So I can't wait to wear my Nostromo hat. But I did find it. It was actually auctioned at one point for $7,000. I'm like, $7,000 would have been totally worth owning his hat.
The original hat.
Like the coolest
that
cap
totally
ever.
makes sense. Yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's so fun.
Let me ask you this. So now as an adult and having just re-seen it, Alien or Aliens?
Oh yeah, we talked about
Aliens.
No.
So you like Aliens
I
better.
like Aliens better.
Okay.
This is what I said to the guy right after Alien played a guy. The good news is you get to watch Aliens now. Aliens, in my opinion, is the best action movie ever made. Straight up.
Wow.
Which one would I prefer? Alien. Because I am a horror fan before I'm an action fan. Alien is one of the best films ever made. I just think Aliens is like basically a perfectly made, like that and RoboCop are probably to me my
I'd
two.
stick Predator in that.
Predator, but Predator's not as well made. I mean, that's the thing. Predator's fun, but those movies are like perfect. Terminator's pretty close, the first one. But like Aliens is like a perfectly constructed world movie performance. It's just a great movie.
But it's a different
I
genre almost.
100% an Alien fan all the way. And but that makes sense that you'd like Alien. 'Cause
Yeah, I
Aliens
love
moves like
Aliens.
lightning and it's fast.
It's fast. There's things exploding, things flying at your face that burn your face off. It
is
my
on
kind
a
of
production
movie.
value. It's pretty amazing.
No, it's amazing. I grew up when I was a kid, like say 12 or so. For me, it was Aliens and Terminator 2 because that was out in theaters.
Sure.
And I was just like, oh, they're bigger and better and faster, etc. And for some reason, over the years, now that I'm an adult, I've gone back and watched them both, and now I prefer
Terminator.
Alien and I prefer the Terminator.
Totally.
There's just something. The
But Terminator 2 didn't age as well. Like at the time, it's the best movie any of us ever saw. That one didn't
it's
age
okay,
well.
but I mean, The Terminator is one of the greatest
Brilliant.
low budget. Like now, you can see it as a low budget movie and be like, "This is so beyond what."
Pulling off that
its
shit
budget
is crazy.
And the same thing with Alien. There's just something creepy about the execution of it. Although I love Aliens, there's it's just I prefer. I think the first on both of those are the better movies.
Well, I think Godfather and Alien have something in common, which are best. I mean, if they were just trilogies, they'd be the best trilogies ever made, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the first two are basically perfect, and the third one's totally flawed of both of them. But like Alien 3 actually trumps. Like I'd rather watch Alien 3 than Godfather 3.
Right.
So Alien wins.
And honestly, when I was a kid, Predator would have beaten both Terminator,
awesome.
Terminator 2, and all of them. Yeah, it's still
and that's
definitely one of my
still
faves.
holds up though. Like that doesn't age. It's not
Predator's great.
Predator doesn't age. It's just that it's like because it's Arnie and stuff. It's a little
It's got its campy moments, but so does Terminator.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What did you see, Bekah?
Let's see, what did I watch this week? Oh, so Whitney just put an article up on our site yesterday that I proofed for him, asking if In the Mouth of Madness is the scariest film of the 90s. And I was proofing it over the weekend, and then I was like, you know what? I haven't seen this in a long time. So I watched In the Mouth of Madness, and then after I watched it, I was like, yeah, this did really fucking scare me in the 90s, but you know what scared me even more? Event Horizon. So I went back and watched Event Horizon 2. And then I proposed.
Wait, there's a sequel?
Sam Neill, baby.
Event Horizon 2. Where?
And then I proposed the question today: which one is scarier, In the Mouth of Madness or Event Horizon? I still have to say that when I first saw it, I think Event Horizon scared me more. But now, when I watch them, it's definitely In the Mouth of Madness.
Really?
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch In the Mouth of Madness, and you gave me a perfect segue because while you watched that level of Carpenter's career, I actually watched Village of the Damned, which I'd never seen before.
Coming out on Scream Factory in a
Scream
couple
Factory.
of weeks.
I think it's next
not
Tuesday.
A fan when I was young. So.
And Vampires, which Twilight Time put out on Blu-ray.
Oh, that film.
Now, here's the thing. Okay, so Village of the Damned, never seen it before this. This was my first time watching it. And I'd never seen the original, so I only vaguely knew the story. I actually rather liked it a lot. Obviously, it's not one of Carpenter's best, but I was able to watch it objectively and feel like, oh, this is for me, it was a lost Carpenter movie. It was a little nugget, kind of in that, late 90s period that I'd never seen. And there was enough about it that I really liked. Christopher Reeve, I mean, I'm so used to him. I've seen him in a few other non-Superman movies, but not many. So, like, Death Trap is a great, great movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But this was interesting to see him as a leading man, and I thought he was really good in it. Kirstie Allen's great in it. A lot of interesting choices, and just, I guess, the stuff with the kids is a little off. That's when... But,
just a little?
Well, okay. But you're dealing with children, okay?
Yeah.
That said...
Isn't one Lindsay Hahn? Like the girl we all know from...
Oh, quite possibly.
I think she's one of the main... I think she is the main little girl.
Who's that?
Lindsay Hahn.
She's a friend of Amanda Fuller's.
You would have
who
met
is
her a
an
ton of times
actress.
doing jump cut events and stuff. She's
probably.
She comes around.
She started
a bunch.
making her own films recently. She was an actress. She is an actress.
Yeah,
as
she
well.
was in Shrooms.
You
couple
totally
other
recognize
things.
her, but like I think
Yeah.
when I read her bio for the first time, I think it said she was the star.
Now I gotta look
little
her up.
girl.
Well, yeah,
Children
the
of Death.
little boy is Thomas Dekker, who has since gone on to
he's
do,
a good actor. Yeah, he's a good
is
actor.
John Connor in the Sarah Connor
Yeah.
Chronicles. But no, I actually don't think the movie doesn't 100% work, but enough of it does stylistically. I think the first 20 minutes before the kids show up, like the first 20 minutes is genuinely creepy, where there's like this thing that hushes over the town and they all pass out.
That's right. Yeah.
And all of a
God, I
sudden,
haven't seen that since it came out.
It's real. Like the
crazy.
opening 20 minutes is really solid.
Yeah, she is in Village of the Damned.
Okay, so it is her. But no, I really liked it. And then there's little things throughout. Like there's one sequence where Christopher Reeve is in the cemetery talking to the little boy, and it's an emotional scene. But the whole thing's shot in a wide, and it's like the most gorgeous like clouds and like backscape you can ask for. And then there's a really great documentary on the making of it that put together by Sean Clark, our former guest. Andrew Cash edited it. And it was really good. You got to really kind of it was one of those Carpenter only did it because if he did Village of the Damned, the remake, they'd let him remake Creature of the Black Lagoon, and that's all he wanted to do. So he did it as part of a contractual deal to do Creature.
And why didn't Creature happen?
Because Village of the Damned didn't do well. So it was like one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of deals.
Wow.
But it was interesting hearing them talk about it, hearing about how it got kind of rushed at the last minute because apparently a lot of material that they shot got cut out. But I don't know. I thought it was super cool. I think the disc is worth it if you've never seen it. The doc's really great. Mark Hamill's in it, and he's really good.
Mark Hamill's not bad in it. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
he plays the priest.
Man, it's been a long time.
So there's cool stuff in it that I think is worth revisiting. That said, Vampires is not nearly as good, but also has a lot of cool stuff in it.
I mean, Vampires is like really well put together. It's just like it just feels awful. The people are awful. Everything about it's like dark. I want to return quickly to Bekah's thing.
Sure.
Event Horizon. Okay, like where I'd fallen that I don't find either. Like Event Horizon, I remember when it came out, has those disturbing montages of hell that I think were really effective.
Yeah.
And way scary than anything in the Mouth of Madness is just a great movie. Like I don't find it scary. I just love it. I love it as a movie. I love the Lovecraft, but it's not. It's more like mentally scary. Like wow, if somebody could control space and time, and you know. But it didn't scare me at all.
Elements of it scary, like when the guy's holding the gun and he's like, "I have to do it." He wrote me like this, and then shoots
that is
it.
cool.
I mean,
You're
there's
right.
some like genuinely terrifying moments.
But like I'm thinking back to if I judge both of those from when they come out, I definitely fall on the Event Horizon for scariest. I like the other movie more as a movie. Like,
oh yeah,
In the Mouth of Madness to me is a classic, a little modern classic.
Yeah.
Whereas Event Horizon is like awesome when it's awesome, and then there's a few really hokey scenes in it that ruin it, like the black guy going off into space. Going, I'm gonna see you later, and he's flying off to his death. And you're like, I think I would have left that on the cutting floor.
No, the part. Well, what I did discover is the part of Event Horizon, which didn't used to get to me, but now does, is where he's having flashes of his wife talking to him. And before, like when I was watching this at like 1997, when I was 16 years old, I didn't even like those scenes didn't faze me, and I barely even remembered him. I was like, yeah, his wife's in there. I think her eyes are black or some jazz. And now when I was watching it, I was like, man, that's like fucked up because his wife killed herself, and you know she's coming back from hell and trying to pull him with him, and it's
Actually, the scariest moment of that movie was a line, and actors who can do this. Like, this is why Sam Neill's a great actor. If somebody asked me what's the best moment Sam Neill's had, I'd say one's probably there's the rocking chair in Possession where he rocks back and forth and then he just stops. There's a moment of that always
yeah.
But it's in Event Horizon where the person goes, something about home, and he just goes, I am home, and then he backs into a shadow.
Yeah.
And it's fucking scary. Like, it's just one of those moments where you go, ooh. Like, it gives you, like, the chill, and that's hard to do in performance. Like, to be scary in a horror movie with a line or something, that, to me, is like the height of good acting. So I love both those movies. I got to say they're both.
That sounds like a good double
super
bill.
cool
yeah,
movies.
Event Horizon and In the Mouth of Madness.
I got to mention these two shorts because, ironically, you guys just wrote about this the other day. But when I watched The Boy about, I think it was last weekend, Dick prefaced it because he works at Cartoon Network. He prefaced it by showing me these two things that were basically called infomercials playing on Adult Swim at 4 a.m. Playing at 4 a.m. where they have this new idea at Adult Swim to put some certain content on at this like crazy random time, and just with no fanfare. And then these things are like amazing, like crazy David Lynch films that they're pretending are infomercials. So he showed me two of them. I didn't realize they're by the people who made that thing that went viral last year called Too Many Cooks.
Which is pretty creepy in itself.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. It was a big viral video that like went the rounds like nuts.
It's
last
supposed
year.
to be like
long.
it's like if you're stuck
Sitcoms.
in a sitcom in the 80s, but there's a serial killer following you from sitcom to sitcom.
Yeah, that was really popular, but I much preferred the two he showed me. One just played this weekend, and it was called this one, the newest one, and you guys wrote about it.
We wrote about it. Greg
a couple
wrote
days
about
ago.
it.
Somebody wrote about The House Full of People was the recent one they did like last weekend, and it's just like it's all surveillance footage of a house, of a family, and it just like kind of builds on top of each other. And by the end, it's literally like watching what David Lynch would have made as like a student film. It's fucking crazy where it builds. But then he showed, and I was like, yeah, it's cool. I wouldn't watch it again, kind of thing. Like, and I wouldn't have watched it at the time at 4 a.m. if somebody didn't tell me to keep watching, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because the way it starts, you're like, what the hell? It's so random. The next one, though, I love that it's called this. I only just found out before the show. It's called unedited. I can't even say it straight. Unedited footage of a bear. And it just starts as there's just a bear on screen. So if you were watching for about a couple minutes, there's a bear doing nothing. So if you were just watching, and then it cuts to a short film, basically. And so it's kept the name, even though it's nothing. And it's like this woman doing a infomercial for like, I don't think it's not herpes. It's nothing like quite like herpes, but something like that. and it's all an infomercial. She gets the kids. It's just a little off, and then the camera like lingers on her a little too long when the ad should end. Like you're like, yeah, that's, and these are all the side effects, and the camera keeps following her and silence and keeps following, and she keeps driving and driving and driving, and then she parks her car and gets out of her car and just looks down the street and sees like another version of her running at her like a fucking feral maniac covered in blood, and she's like, what? And then it's like the craziest time crimes type movie where they're like attacking each other and it keeps building, and like there's this whole alternate life in her house, and are the kids in danger? And you're like, what the fuck? And what maniacs made this stuff? And I have the answer now because of Dick. It is by a group from Baltimore called AB Video Solutions. Like as boring as the name of the movie being, so it's clearly all on purpose to create this like enigma, but of anything called an unedited footage of a bear. But I would they're on YouTube. Highly recommended, especially unedited footage of bear. If you can get past the bear part. Totally, and these are well made too, and they had budgets. That's the other thing, especially this one. You could tell it had, probably 10 or so grand budget. So it's clearly this like concept, which I think is really cool, is to put this really fucked up material, because it's definitely not kid friendly, in the middle of the night, just randomly with no fanfare, and see if people catch on. I really think it's interesting. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's just intriguing that that's a direction they would go in. But I was really entertained by them.
Well, Too Many Cooks definitely exploded last year, so I could see that it might be a lucrative kind of place for them to go.
They're probably doing well. But check it out if you're into weird shit.
That sounds like there's a Rick and Morty episode where they're watching TV and they're watching this commercial, and it's like a car commercial, but in the commercial the guy ends up like he's driving the car, and then he keeps driving home, and then you're watching it, and they're like, is the commercial still going on, or are we just watching this guy's life now? Yeah. And that sounds what it's like.
It is a pretty interesting idea when you think, and it reminds me of the best Sam and Dean Supernatural episode where they're stuck in TV for the day, and they end up doing a herpes commercial. And it's pretty hilarious. But anyway, so that's what I saw.
The other thing that I watched that I definitely want to plug, just because it does tie into kind of our horror roots, the new Pee Wee Herman.
Yay!
Which I have to say is just a breath of fresh air. Like, I absolutely loved it. When I heard they were going to do a remake of Pee Wee Herman or give him a new movie, I was kind of like, oh, this is going to be, this is not going to be grand. But it was phenomenal. And like, I enjoyed it. I want my daughter to watch it. It was just great across all levels. But it had a Large Marge moment. And I bring it up because when I was a kid,
Marge was terrifying.
I would leave the room when Pee Wee got into that truck and she started telling the story. That was like my cue to like go get M&Ms from the kitchen because I couldn't handle it.
Did Tim Burton do it? Who did it?
This one was done by Judd.
Judd Apatow
Rubin
produced
and
it.
Judd Apatow.
But I don't know who directed it.
It was, I looked it up. I need to look it up again because I have forgotten now. But
is it
was
a feature length or a feature?
It's a feature length.
It's really great,
and it's free on Netflix. It's like streaming on Netflix. So and it's phenomenal. Some really great nods.
It's good for the kids too. Although apparently, like there's an alien in the opening scene that might be scary because I think it was Josh Forbes actually.
I think he's supposed to be like a sweet little alien. He's supposed to be like E.T.
No, but Josh Forbes, who was on our show, directed Contracted 2, had posted on Facebook like, "Is it safe for me to show my kid the new Pee Wee movie?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, he'll love it." And then he did a screen grab of the alien. He's like, why didn't any of you tell me this monstrosity was in the opening of the movie?
It's like the sweet thing with like beautiful eyes. And they exchange
it looks like
friendship bracelets. Yeah, it's like Mac and me. But there is a scene where Pee Wee gets stuck down a well because it's the same kind of adventure setup where he's like traveling cross country to get to.
Give him the premise. So Joe, what's the actor's name?
Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello.
I'm saying the last name wrong. Yeah, that's him.
But he plays himself. He goes into town and meets Pee Wee, and he's like, "I'm Joe Manganiello," and he's like, "Yeah, weird. Joe Manganiello, whatever."
Like Pee Wee has no clue who he is, but they become best friends.
And he's like, "You need to come to my birthday party in New York City." So that's the whole premise.
Is that Pee Wee's traveling cross country to get to Joe's birthday party?
Why not?
And it bounces back and forth between Joe like anxiously hoping that Pee Wee's going to come to the party, and Pee Wee like trying to get cross country to come to the party, and all the different people that he meets along the way. So that's the setup, which is really fun. But there's a point where Pee Wee gets stuck down a well. And while he's down there, he starts having all of these hallucinations of like people telling him that he'd never make it cross country. And then at one point, the Queen shows up. And I think it's like the Queen of England. I can't even remember the character. But her face melts and then it catches on fire and then her eyes become mouths. And it's like the most terrifying moment, but it's the large Marge moment. It's the one moment that I was like, this is going to fuck my kid up if I show her this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm still showing
That's why
it.
Pee-wee's
because
always
large
a cult
Marge
character. It's so good.
So, yeah, it's got the large Marge moments. I recommend the movie in general, but for
I
those of
always
you
have
guys...
been hoping for him to like get more stuff. Yeah, like more. Like it was cool when he was in Mystery Men. I was always really happy with that.
Yeah.
It's just he's one of those guys you want to see him, not just as Pee-wee. He's like
He's
an
a good
interesting
actor.
performance style, and he's just an interesting character.
There is one scene in this movie where everyone's calling it the balloon scene, where he is demonstrating to the Amish his favorite hobby, and he's literally like playing music on a balloon. And the camera holds on him for, it's like at least 6 minutes. The camera does not break. It just holds on him while he's doing this whole performance routine. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, just really testament to what a good comedic actor he is. But anyway, large Marge moment.
Yeah.
That's the heart.
He's on Gotham now as the Penguin's dad. Again, since he was the Penguin's dad in Tim Burton's.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of funny. Still not going to watch it, though, the show.
Oh, the Gotham show?
Yeah, it's terrible. All right, anyway, so let's
rock.
Yeah. All right, and welcome back to the show. We are very excited to have this guest with us because he has done it. First of all, he's a really nice guy. We've known him for a long time. Second of all, he's done it all. Producing, directing. Have you acted? Maybe you have. You have acted. All right, he's done it all officially. Welcome to the show, Mr. Darin Scott.
Glad to be here, guys. Yes. Thanks for having me.
and I like you because, unlike a lot of our guests who only like horror, every time I ran into you over the years, if we ever have conversation, we just go off on crazy tangents about all movies, old cinema. And I always tell people, I love running into Darin because we get into the best, old
cinema
Same thing here.
You know why
it's
I love
fantastic.
Darin? He's the only other person I know that can keep up with me on nun films.
Nun films.
Nun films. He loves his nun
I
films
love
just as much as I do.
I love nasty nun movies.
Holy
I don't know.
smokes. I talk comics with you. That's, can work.
No, and I mean, there was like one night that we were at a bar drinking and I was like, School of the Holy Beast. And you were like, fuck yeah. And I was like, and this is why you were awesome.
I wanted to do a documentary about him at one time.
Oh, call me.
No, but I might still do it someday.
Tons of research.
I was coming up with all kinds of crazy titles.
Titles for the nun documentary.
Yeah, like Across the Bear. B-A-R-E.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nice.
Great. Genius.
But we can also talk, unlike some people, we can also talk about Kid and Play. And there's not many people I can talk about Kid and Play. True. I mean, there aren't many people who've been up close and personal. So
That's
I've worked with them.
I know. That is legit.
One day.
That is legit.
Darin directed a House Party movie, by the way.
There was somebody recent I was talking with at the Blumhouse office that had not seen House Party. And I don't remember. It was somebody else. I bet it was Humphrey.
He's a kid. Cultural phenomenon.
Because I was like, how can you not have seen House Party? That was like my high school. Like House Party. That's
Although Class Act is actually my favorite of the Kid and Play movies. Throwing that out there. Where they switch and
Nosferatu.
All right, so we've got Darin on, and I just want to start kind of at least at the beginning, so because I don't know anything about. I mean, we've talked about movies and stuff that we've worked on, but I've never really gotten some of your background history in terms of your love
about your birth.
Not birth. Let's go a little ahead of birth.
Sure.
But no, just your love of films in general and horror. Like when did that start for you? Was it fairly early on, like kind of discovering the horror genre?
Oh yeah, I got hooked on horror as a kid watching the old Universal monster movies on Saturday afternoon and Friday nights. Mm-hmm. They would be on really late and past my bedtime, but on the weekends I could stay up, so I get my blanket.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and watch the Frankenstein movies. We had a horror host in L.A. at that time called, his name was Seymour. It was Seymour's Monster Rally. Would come on at 5 o'clock on Saturdays also. And they'd usually replay the same movie or another movie in the rotation. Mm-hmm. So... my earliest memories of scary films were those, staying up to watch those. I love those. And the first time that I can remember actually not being able to fall asleep because of a movie I'd seen is comical, because it's my mother and I sitting up one night and watching Two for a Guillotine, which is not a scary movie, really. But it seemed scary at the time because it had this scene where a guy gets buried, and the coffin has a window in it, so he can see out, which I've seen in several movies. Nobody's ever explained why you would actually have that.
Right.
Right.
But, dirt is being he's
being
buried.
Cinematic, Darren. It's
yes,
cinematic.
Obviously, he's being buried alive, and they dish the dirt, and for some reason, as a kid, that just scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, that's why I think that they would have like a window in it, is so that if you are still alive, that they could like detect it before you go in the ground.
I don't think this happens enough.
Boy, they had
Cuba, maybe, yeah.
They had a lot of time, but you never know. Yeah, that's true. It could
what was the Corman film?
Curare.
Premature Burial.
Premature Burial has that for sure. I'm sure there was a little screen
that's a
so he
creepy
could watch
one.
watch himself.
There's another one that I'm trying to remember about, and it was a murder mystery, but it was a horror murder mystery. And Darren, you might know this, about a woman who was scared to death of being buried alive. So she was buried connected to a bell inside the house that she could ring if she was buried alive. And then while her family is gathered reading the will, they're like waiting for the bell to ring because like you know that she's still alive.
I'm trying to remember which one that is.
Yeah,
is that one of the Cormans?
It's not. It was around the same time. I want to say it was like 40s or 50s.
Right.
Murder by the clock.
That's
or
like actual
like
folklore. Like people used to be buried with access to a bell just in case they got buried alive. But so,
and then after that, it was Hammer films.
Right. So I mean, were your parents like? Obviously, you just said you watched the movie with your mom. Were they okay with you watching scary movies? Did they watch with you, or what would they think of movies like that?
I didn't watch them. I never.
But it didn't sound like you had to sneak them.
Huh?
It didn't sound like you had to sneak them like we did.
No, I didn't have to sneak them because they're old black and white movies from the 30s. They weren't. When I was first coming up, we didn't really. Well, let me correct. In the 70s, there were all these incredibly gory movies. But as a little kid, there weren't. And even then, I wasn't allowed to see them. I mean, I didn't see The Exorcist until I went to college.
Wow.
But
I wasn't allowed to see R-rated movies.
You're from LA originally, right? Now, were your parents in the industry or any of your family?
No. I grew up in Inglewood.
Oh.
There was nobody. Wait. Let me correct. We did have a Hollywood connection. Grady lived in the neighborhood from Sanford and Son.
You ever see
He moved into the neighborhood, and it was a big deal in Inglewood. We have a celebrity.
Wow.
Grady's here. And he came and spoke at my high school and everything.
You ever see a movie? I think it was set there. It might have been right when you were around that age, called Killer of Sheep.
Oh yeah, it was like Charles Burnett's.
Because
I produced his films To Sleep with Anger.
Oh, the Danny Glover movie.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I've never been able to track a copy of that.
I can't give you.
I would love to see it. Killer of Sheep.
Yeah.
I think it's in the top 10 movies I've ever experienced in a cinema. Like
It's
where
brilliant.
it was recent because they did this re-release of this movie.
You're saying Killer Sheep, right?
Killer of Sheep.
Killer of Sheep.
And
okay.
it's I mean, it's
Killer
just,
Sheep's a little different.
Yeah,
I've seen
okay, I was
Killer
going to
Sheep.
say,
Black
best
Sheep,
10 movies
the New
I've
Zealand
ever
version.
had.
But no, I mean, it's really lyrical, and it's like so different than anything being made about that part of America during that period.
Definitely.
It's really an amazing movie, and I've only seen his second film, My Brother's Wedding. That's the only other one I've ever seen. So
yeah, you should see To Sleep with Anger. I think you'd really like it.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome that you're connected to it. If you hadn't said Inglewood, I wouldn't have said it.
Yeah, we went to Sundance with that one. It won the Director's Jury Prize.
Why is it so hard to find?
It's very strange. I had to order a DVD from Britain.
Huh.
Wow.
It's never come out here. I think it may be slated to come out soon.
Okay.
But
because people often say
it was released. It got theatrical release,
Huh.
small theatrical release. Nobody went and saw it.
This is evidence he's worked on everything.
Yeah.
Because if I can just pull out one random thing out of my head, or just prove that I don't do enough research, one of the two.
Well, I want to the first couple of films that you produced were with Jeff Burr as a director. I love Jeff. I kind of wanted to go back a little bit. You guys, how did you guys hook up? You guys met in college initially?
We met at USC.
USC. So, I mean, was it kind of a given as you were growing up that you wanted to be involved in the film industry at some point, or did you think of other things? Or
not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you went to college for?
No, I got a bachelor's of science in chemical engineering.
Wow.
Wow, that is so not what I expected to hear. Have you ever used the chemical engineering bachelor's in any way?
I worked for Procter & Gamble for 2 years after college in Oxnard. We made Charmin and Bounty, and I was in charge of capital improvements to the paper mill and the converting department. I installed robotics, these early 80s early 80s robots.
I immediately picture like a Tandy computer. That's all I got.
Well, they were run by computers that look at 10, and they would pick up 6 rolls of of Charmin.
Mm-hmm.
Stick them in a box. Do another one.
When you're picking up those rows of Charmin, did you ever think, I'm going to work with Wings Hauser one day?
No,
Because
but I was hoping because I hated it so much, and I had always wanted to do something creative. You know, I'd been writing short stories since grade school, but you know, it just wasn't something that people say, well, you grew up in L.A., but no, I grew up in Inglewood. There's
a different Los Angeles.
It's a different Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Completely. I didn't know anybody in the film business. I didn't know anybody who'd ever made their living doing something creative. It just wasn't.
And yet USC is
something
not
you
too
thought
far
about.
from there, right? Like USC is like not too far.
Not that far.
Yeah, so like that's interesting. You have to go and do a totally different thing to come back to go to school for.
But I've heard that
Exactly.
story a lot about the people who work in the industry where everyone started out doing something that they absolutely fucking despise.
I despise
And
it.
it took that kind of like rock bottom, this is the worst possible job moment I could ever be in. I am in hell. Fuck this, I'm going to Hollywood. And there's a lot of people that I've talked to that have that kind of moment.
Oh yeah,
Like
it
being a
was.
tickler.
You're moving
That was
toilet
tough.
paper with a robot.
Yeah, tickler. That's a pretty rough job.
yeah, that was rough being a tickler.
My first acting experiences were actually in student films Jeff made.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, to me, all
Because
right.
I had
So
a lot of friends in the cinema school,
yeah.
and I loved movies. I was obsessed with movies, but it never clicked with me while in school. Oh, maybe you ought to try to switch to this. And
Yeah, I mean, your knowledge of movies, no matter what genre, what you talk about, is like unparalleled. And you know,
oh,
last
no, that's
year,
what people want to know a lot more.
from A Whisper to a Scream came out on Blu-ray,
Yeah, great.
and we had talked about it a lot. We loved the movie, but I loved the full-length documentary. I think it was Daniel Griffiths who did it.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, because I've known you and Jeff for years, you know, together and all and separately, but seeing old photos of you guys in college together and getting a little glimpses of your college films back then, it's like, oh man, that's so cool that, you know, that they did that. And I know you've told the story a bazillion times, so I'm not going to make you retell it now. You can buy From a Whisper to Scream on Blu-ray if you want. But I love that you and Jeff would do things like wait outside Vincent Price's house after you bought a map.
Oh, come on, tell it
that's
again.
just
Tell it
be-
again.
Tell it again.
Tell
Come
it.
on.
All right, I'll tell that
Tell
story.
it. I don't know it.
Just
It's
because-
Vincent Price. It's a Vincent Price story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we knew we wanted Vincent Price to be the narrator,
Wraparound,
so to
yeah.
speak, the wraparound guy in the movie, and we'd written the part for him.
Mhm.
And then we're like, well, how do we get Vincent Price? I'm not agents or anything like that. We're 24 years old, all of us, and you know. But at the time in Los Angeles, there was a service, which I'm pretty sure is out of business now. There was a service where you give them $10, and they would give you the address of any celebrity or actor in town
$10.
for $10.
They used to do that on maps. I remember like you would pay like, it was like a newspaper machine where like you'd put in your quarter and you'd get the celebrity map back and it'd just have a list of celebrities.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a service.
Pre-Google.
That's pretty crazy.
It was
Right.
crazy good. So we bought Vincent Price's address.
Now, did they
And
have
then-
like a list, like a la carte? Like, I'll take a price of Tom Cruise and
No, well, as I remember, it was just you have to ask them for who you want, and they'd go through their database, and that'll be $10.
that is
Wow.
crazy.
So it was, you know.
Take him cookies.
Long before the stalker.
Can
days.
you imagine the lawsuits now?
Yeah.
But so we bought Vincent Price's address, and we drove to his house, and we parked across the street and proceeded to sit there for an hour arguing. Who's gonna go up to the door? And he's like, well, you're the producer. You're supposed to do that. I'm like, well, you're the director. You have the vision. You're supposed to. We were terrified. You know, we're like, well, you know, what happens that we could end up on a slab somewhere with a knife coming down at us, or
Pendulum.
you know, mess with Vincent Price, you know.
Yeah.
So we waited and we waited and we're arguing, and then the mailman came. And the mailman came and knocked on the door. And we're watching. Vincent Price open the door, talk to the mailman, take his thing and go inside.
He
And we're
definitely
like-
lives here.
He lives here, he's home, and he's answering the door. We cannot punk out now. So we went up, we said, all right, let's just both go together. And we went together and knocked on the door, and he opens it. Yeah, yes, boys. Oh, Mr. Price. You know, we totally geeked out on him. And we had this script that was bound in red, because we're very literal. And at the time, and he says, "Oh, come on in, boys."
Are you serious?
We come in. He shows us his art collection, introduces us to his wife, gives us iced tea. Want some more iced tea? We're there for like a half hour.
Oh my God!
He was the nicest guy in the world, and we're like, okay, well, when we get ready to leave, we'll call you about the script. He's like, yes, I'll read it. And he read it, and he said no. But
he ended up doing the film.
Yeah. Well, what happened was we had not actually waited for him to say yes before telling all the investors in the film that he would be in it. Oh. So what we decided to do is, let's just shoot everything but the connecting device, and we'll keep working on him. And then, if we don't get him, we've already shot 80% of the movie. What are they going to do? So that's what we did. Then we came back to L.A., and we're like, oh, man, we're in big trouble. We're already over budget. We don't have a connecting device. We don't have Vincent Price. We had cut the rest of the movie together. It was edited. And so we went back to Vincent Price, and this time we went through his agent, and we screened the film for him, and he was still kind of on the edge. I don't know if I want to do it. And we just kept bugging him and upping the amount. What did we pay him? Like $10,000 for 2 days, which at that time was good money.
Now.
You can still get some of those guys now, like towards the end,
Yeah. So he came and he did it, and it was such a fantastic experience working with him. We shot it at the old Hammond lumber yard in Venice, which was the Corman Studios for many years. And we built a stage there that looked like, it's the old library set.
It was a very impressive set that you put him on. It was like classy.
Yeah, it was really cool. And when Corman came in and saw it, he looked at Vincent. I think I've made this movie. And he brought Hazel Court down, and they had a big reunion.
In this movie.
No,
right?
He did not. He did not have
cool.
Susu. He did not have Susu. So that's pretty much the story.
Wow.
There's other twists and turns, things that happened.
That's all on the Blu-ray. There you go.
Yeah.
They
have to go with the Blu-ray.
We always talk about the Clu Gulager piece because it's so different than anything else.
So disturbing.
I didn't know it was him the first time I watched it. It was before I'd met him, of course, but even then I knew who he was, and he just looked so different. Such a different performance from him. I love that piece.
Yeah.
I think it's one of his favorites, too, because, we didn't know that he was all into Grand Guignol. And
that he was so dark.
His
writing's dark.
So into this stuff.
Was that the first time
it was actually probably brighter than it would have been, that piece, if he had... if he had written it, I don't know what would have happened.
It wouldn't have had the fun little offspring jumping around.
No, it probably would have.
And his real wife,
Huh?
His real wife as playing his sister.
That was his real wife?
Yeah.
That's his wife playing his sister.
Oh my gosh. She gets
That's John's mom.
Completely bucking that.
She does.
Wow,
they went
that's
for
crazy.
Those Gulagers.
They were fit. The
hard to
Gulagers
keep
are
the clothes
fearless.
on.
Did you ever see the LA Weekly?
That article.
That article on them
about them.
No.
It's like a 10-page article.
Recently,
it was
or how long
awesome.
No, it might have been even just. Was
In
it
the
after
90s,
Green?
I
Was it
think?
after Project Green Light or before?
Was before.
Before,
Is it on
I
all the
think it was
Gulagers,
before.
or?
No, it was about them. Their whole
was about
family,
the
like
whole
the traveling
clan.
gypsies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Traveling gypsies.
Well, it is because
It
the
was
time
after
they
they-
spent in
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Then they came back.
Right.
And they got this article about them because there's this artistic,
Family.
bizarre clan.
And it's very
You
apt
know?
to how they are still. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
they're
very
still
there.
reflective of the kind of things they still try to do. And
Absolutely.
Clue's still trying to make. He's making a movie now. I think he's going to make one in summer. A Big Short. That he's
Wow.
at 86 years old.
Wow.
It's
incredible.
that's the shit.
If you've
that will
ever
always
seen
keep you
his
inspired.
shorts, his shorts are great.
Yeah.
That's impressive
They're
because, like,
twisted.
I
You've seen
can.
Vic
Huh?
that he's in.
Vic
The one-
is amazing.
That's the only one I haven't
Oh,
seen.
yeah.
So
you gotta
good.
see it.
That's
It's
his other
so
best
great.
performance. I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, it's one of his best of all time.
That's impressive though, because like I could make films with my spouse, I do it,
Yeah.
but making films with my parents, oh my, it's like a whole level of like mind blowing.
yeah.
Well, I think at this point,
Yeah.
Clue will only do acting things for John.
Yeah, I think
for
he's
his
more or
son.
less retired as an actor. 'cause
Yeah,
Yeah,
he'll
he-
do stuff for John.
It's very hard
Great.
to get him to act now.
Yeah.
He was in Tangerine last year and had a fun little role in the back
Oh,
of
is
the car.
he?
Oh,
Yeah.
he's actually a passenger in the car in a taxi of this guy who's going out looking for prostitutes, and the taxi driver, and Clue tells the story, and it's because Clue's obviously named after a bird, because the Clue bird.
Right.
But he tells a story where his name's not Clue, but it's probably the same naming story. Because my parents, they looked out the window and they saw the bird, and they named me after the bird. And he's kind of on this ramble about his name. And I'm like, I think that's probably a true story he's telling.
Yeah.
He's just switched out his
He's
name.
not even in character anymore. He's just talking to the crew.
And you also
the
get
set.
John Gulager with no clothes on and an orgy in that film. So
In that one?
Uh-huh.
Which
Holy
one is
smokes.
this?
It was the movie that did all the awards last year for Tangerine, all the indie awards. It's about the
On
two
Netflix.
transsexuals, prostitutes who it's like the day Christmas Eve.
You know what's
and-
weird is I've seen scenes of this, but I've not seen the whole
You know,
thing.
I thought it was a really fun little movie. It was like it had real energy to it. It was different. It was it was
and
just
John's
different-
naked.
John's naked. Well, you
That
know,
happens a lot.
he said he was more
Yeah.
naked when
Yeah,
they
it
shot
does.
it. He was willing to do more, but they didn't need it. Mental pictures aside.
So
I
after
can't get rid of it.
so after that, after doing From a Whisper to Scream, and
Mhm.
did it do well? Because after that really forged this great relationship where you continue to work with Jeff, and obviously Clue was always involved in some of your projects.
Well, I wouldn't be in the film business if not for Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, our relationship in college kind of introduced me to it. I took a couple of cinema classes. I needed electives, and I love movies, but we'd stay up all night all the time talking movies. And it still didn't click to me, oh, this is what you ought to do, until I ended up rooming with him a couple of years. After a couple of years at Procter & Gamble, I had to move out of my apartment, and I moved in with Jeff. Now, everybody coming over to the house everybody was trying to get in the film business, and I caught the bug. You know, and what had been really funny about it is when I was working at Procter & Gamble, I actually started working at a video store in the evenings for free, because it was in the early days of video stores, and they were all mom and pops. This was pre-Blockbuster, and I was like, maybe this is what I want to do, because then I could sit and watch movies all day at work. So maybe what I want to do is own a video store. And so I just found one that was close to the plant where I worked, and I said, I'll work here in the evenings for nothing.
Wow.
And they're
That's
like,
crazy.
what?
They didn't
I'm
pay
like,
you at
huh?
all? They must have at some point.
I
You
didn't
got to
ask
rent
him
whatever
to
you
pay.
wanted, though, right?
Huh?
You could rent whatever you wanted, so that's the trick.
Yeah. That was but they made most of their money off of these guys. They had, like most of those video stores, they had like a section of wall this big that was the porn
adults-
section.
The adult section in the corner with the little curtain.
And the most fascinating thing was the guys. There were certain guys. There was like 10 or 15 guys who basically, to me, they were funding the store, because they would come in and they would start with A. They would rent every day a different 3 or 4. Then come
3
back
or
and
4.
bring out the next 3 or 4.
My gosh.
They'd reach the end,
They must
and
not
then
go
they
to
would
work.
start over
Yeah.
again.
You don't need
Huh?
work when you have porn.
Yeah, when you have
Yes.
the
You
adult
don't need
stuff, you
work.
don't need
But
to.
how do you afford to go rent your movies?
You've got porn. You don't need to afford anything. It
we
doesn't matter, Bekah. Just put everything on your
don't
mind.
need. We just have porn.
So,
Wow.
So how
now
did-
with the internet, those guys probably just never leave there.
yeah, they don't need.
Was there a
Thank
movie? I mean, because sometimes we talk about this. Is there a movie where you saw the way it was filmed and realized, oh, that's actually within our grasp to make our own movies versus being a wash of a movie? Like for me,
Yeah.
I always talk about Polanski's short films. When I saw the Wads film
Right.
school, I saw those. I was like, oh, you can make movies. Like some dude actually with a little camera just did that. It wasn't.
Right.
It's not the big polished thing on screen.
No, I can't really say I had a moment like that. It's weird. My career was weird because the first time I actually ever stepped on a semi-professional, I'll call it the semi-professional set
Yeah.
of his movie, I was the writer-producer. So I
Wow.
never did,
Yeah, the
You didn't
build-up.
PA.
I never PA'd
Wow.
or did
Yeah.
any of those things, though sometimes, on low-budget films,
Kind of got to do a little of
You
all.
you're
of it.
kinda
doing a
just
lot of
PA.
all of it. You're carrying around track and stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't have a moment like that. And in fact, it took me years before I had produced 9 films before it occurred to me. Though Jeff had said, "Oh, you should direct. You should try directing. You should try directing. I bet you could direct." And I would be like, "Nah, I didn't go to film school. I don't know anything about that."
But you've been around enough sets that you know
Yeah,
how everything
eventually, I said, "Well, I think I'm ready."
Yeah.
But
Oh.
What was that
I
first
was-
experience like?
Hmm?
Taking the reins of.
It was heavenly for the most part. You know, I mean, you just don't get experiences like this for your first film very much anymore because, you know, it was with Live Entertainment, which then became Artisan, which then was bought into Lionsgate. So now it's Lionsgate. You know, every time it comes out, it has a different. They add logos. You know, they don't take the logos away. They just stack
it gets
them
more
up.
production companies as it goes.
Stack them up, but there was a day, and I knew when it happened. I was like, okay. I had produced this movie called Sprung, which was a little romantic comedy over at Trimark, but they released it theatrically because back in the 90s, that's what you did with small movies, is actually put them in theaters.
Yeah.
We don't see that often now.
No one gets theatrical now.
Hardly
VOD
gets
if you're
theatrical.
It's all VOD.
But the movie premiered on a Wednesday at the Cinerama Dome in the main theater.
Oh.
And what was incredible was, because some sort of vagaries of scheduling, that was the first day of shooting on my first movie as a writer-director. So I went in the morning, shot all day, my first day as a director. I'm all excited. Then I go to the trailer. There's champagne and flowers and everything waiting for me. A limo comes up. We change clothes. Limo takes us to the Cinerama Dome for the premiere of my last movie, and then to a big party at a place on Hollywood Boulevard. And I said, my first day as a director, premiere at the Cinerama Dome. And I turned to my wife and I said, honey, it's all downhill from here. From this day, it's going to be all downhill because I can't top this.
Was it?
Huh?
Was it all downhill?
I would say it was.
There's curves.
There's curves up and down.
One film I had no idea you worked on,
valleys.
which I found out only yesterday, and when it came out, I liked it more than Reservoir Dogs. It's Love in a 45.
Oh, thank you.
And I mean,
that's one of my favorite films.
And I think I remember thinking at the time, the problem it was going to have was because of because Tarantino had come out. But recently, I heard an interview with him talking about how he loved the movie, but maybe I don't know what he did. There was some weird controversial story about it. But
he said Tarantino said that it was the best of the knockoffs.
Right.
That was the best of the knockoffs.
That's kind of a good compliment.
But it's such.
Well, actually, it was a good compliment. And it was after Reservoir Dogs, but it was before True Romance.
And all the film school kind of knockoffs, like where everyone at film school started emulating.
Yeah.
And
Dinosaur Bob. Jeff Combs in one of the greatest roles you'll ever see. If you haven't seen this movie,
it's one of his favorite parts.
Oh my God, Dinosaur Bob is one of my favorite characters, and Gil Bellows. It was just one of those movies when it came out. I remember going, "Man, this is the coolest movie I think I've ever just coolest." Was it before or after Natural Born? After Natural Born, right?
It was made before Natural Born Killers came out, but then Natural Born Killers came out, and everybody said, "Oh, 1145 is a ripoff of Natural Born Killers," which was just
bullshit.
Such a misery for Cardy Talkington.
Yeah.
One of the most talented, brilliant guys I have worked with in the business. And he's not, to this day, gotten to make another movie.
It might have been on NPR. They were talking about him. It might have been an interview with him last year, and where I learned thing about Tarantino saying that. But that movie, I had no idea. We've met each other a bunch of times. I had no idea you worked on that. How that relationship started, because that movie, if you haven't seen this movie, it's so entertaining. It's meant to be an entertainment movie. It's just one of those movies where it's like two lovers, bad. Gil Bellows is a total fuck up.
Yeah.
And what's her name? Renee Zellweger, right?
Yeah.
One of her first kind of.
I'd say, and she has acknowledged to me that we basically discovered her.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that she had made before then, which was. What was it?
The chainsaw movie?
It was a chainsaw. It was
Generation.
One of the chainsaws, but that film didn't come out for years.
Right.
So what happened was we read everybody in town for her part. I mean, for the part she eventually played. And trying to find a Hollywood actress who came across as genuinely Texan just was impossible. We read everybody from Ashley Judd, Jennifer Rubin. I mean, it's an endless list of early 90s actresses. So we couldn't find anybody. So we convinced Trimark to let us go to Austin, set up offices, and start auditioning people there. And their fallback was, if we couldn't find anybody, then we had to cast Jennifer Rubin. Not that there's anything wrong with Jennifer Rubin, but she wasn't right for this part. And we're there a few days, and we get a tape. It's a videotape Renee had made in her backyard. And she had gotten a hold of the script, and she had so much energy. And then she came into the office and had so much, before we even read with her, we knew that we wanted her for the part. And, then we had to go to war with the studio because they're like, nobody's ever heard of her. But we were able to cast her. And when we brought the film back to L.A., we had a premiere at the Avco in Westwood, which is no longer there, but it's now some other theater that they've changed it into. And all of the agents and managers of the other actors in the piece came, and then they started fighting over Renee. And that's pretty much...
Yeah, she comes across so naturalistic, like who she is. She comes across... And it's, nowadays, people don't think, oh, she's so sexy. In that film, she just had this naturalistic sexiness.
She did.
That unapologetic kind of... I know, it's like an innocence or something, that's characters. It's a really good love story.
They did have an innocence
better than
about
Natural
them.
Killers love story. Like, Natural Killers has a lot of things I like about it.
Yeah.
But their chemistry was...
I prefer it, but I'm biased.
And Dinosaur Bob tips the scales. I swear, if you guys haven't seen Jeff on that, that and Fright.
It's one of his favorite parts he's done.
Yeah, and you worked with Jeff a bunch, right?
Yeah,
over the years?
every chance that I've had an opportunity to work with him. If I have something that
Where was
he
the
can
first
play,
time you met? Was it at that or something else? Before
I had met him through friends of mine who worked at Empire, but that was the first time I worked with him. Then I had him in Caught Up, and he was also in Dark House. So I've made 3 movies with him.
Yeah. About Dark House. That was a Fangoria film. I was one of the people who was on the acquisition team for that one.
Thank you.
Oh, that was great.
Thank you for picking us.
I just made the connection that was your film.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else can we talk about? I don't want to jump right into our topic yet because there's so much here. Yeah, we have to talk about Tails.
Well, Wings Hauser. Let's just cut to Wings.
Tails.
Let's talk about the wingman.
I mean, we could talk about Spike Lee and other guys, but we could talk about Wings Hauser, one of my favorite, Vice Squad, one of my favorite roles of all time.
I'm the devil, baby.
Oh, man. I swear to God. And also, he's on Twitter now, and I don't think anyone knows he's on Twitter because it's like no one follows him, but he'll just write the most random things and then like some acoustic guitar songs.
He's a madman.
Yeah, I could tell that.
I've
always loved Wings.
But it was because of Vice Squad that I wanted him in the movie.
I can tell because he's playing he's like if the Vice Squad guy became a cop, this would be the guy.
Exactly.
I'm going to be straight with you. I'd never seen the film.
Right.
Mike Williamson at Jump. I don't think you could come at Jump Cut. We did a Halloween, and Mike has one of the. This film has. Been a big thing lately. Everyone's trying to find a print, and no one can find a 35mm print.
Super big frustration
really
for
sad.
me. It's really weird.
Mike have one?
No, Mike has a
16. Oh, duh. Yeah.
16, but it's just not the same.
This is like a 1,000-screen release.
Yeah,
and
it makes no sense.
Nobody can find a print.
That's crazy. What do they think happened to all of them? Or was it just a studio that kind of lost them all?
It was Savoy, and they went under a couple of years later. I'd always say I'm the studio killer because anybody who worked a lot in the 80s and 90s has left a lot of studios by the way. So it's like, oh yeah, I worked there, but they're gone.
Yeah.
And Savoy was bought by another company after their library, which was bought by another company, which was bought by another company. Finally, Universal Studios owns the rights to it, and the only reason I know that is because I get residual checks from them.
But Universal put out a DVD of Tales of the Hood from. Do you know what source they used?
Well, it was probably the 1-inch. Right. It looks okay. I mean, we screened it at the Cinematheque.
Okay.
Because they couldn't find a print. They couldn't find a DVD either. I brought mine.
Well, I saw it better than any of those because it was a pristine 16mm. But I got to say, for whatever reason, for some reason, in my head, I thought it was Bones, the Snoop Dogg movie. And in my brain, I was like,
Jimmy Bones.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen that.
It's not
a few years later.
I didn't want to see it when I saw the ads for it. So I went into this going, and he was showing movies all day because it was like this marathon. We get to that one, and I realized I've never seen that. Any anthology I haven't seen, I'm good.
Right.
So I sat down. I gotta say, I think it's one of the great anthologies. Afterwards,
Yeah.
I was
Well, it's
blown
definitely
away by how
different than
good it
just
was.
about any other anthology.
Yeah.
But it's got one of the best like one of the most disturbing kind of intense wraparound stories. When you get to the final act of it, it's pretty. I mean, his performance is so intense. But also have just a lot of people I like, and it was exciting to see, like even Wings.
Oh yeah.
But what was the origin? How did Spike Lee get involved? Because I've never seen his name really with horror. I don't think he's ever really.
No. Well, what happened is I had done another film with Rusty called Fear of a Black Hat, which was
I'm just discovering all these films that I had no idea that were you. I remember seeing that one in the 90s.
yeah, and that one was born out of my obsession with Spinal Tap. And I was like, so we decided to do a rap version of Spinal Tap, Fear of a Black Hat. It
Is
got
that
a
like a
release.
comedy version of Fear of the Black Planet? Like like a satire on Fear of the Black
Gosh, I'm trying to. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The title.
The titles.
The title was, and Spike had seen it and he liked it. There's a crazy story all around that movie too. But when we wrote the script for Tales from the Hood, which I think we wrote it in 2 weeks. I mean, it was really fast, right? And we're like, well, send it to Spike. He liked the other one, and he loved it. And he said, I'm going to help you find the financing for it. And he basically took it around town. We had meetings at a few studios, Universal being one of them, I remember. And it's just fun because it ended up, they passed at the time, but the movie ended up at Universal.
In their library.
Yeah, in their library without a print.
Yeah.
And
What year was that? Because that would have been.
This is
Spike pretty hot.
95, right?
no, this was 95.
Yeah, 95.
95.
Like
Yeah,
Spike would have been
sorry.
pretty hot right around then.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
right in his golden peak.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, can you
and
give
he
us...
was such a great executive producer because he did what you want. He protected us, but he didn't interfere at all creatively. He saw the cuts, he made a few notes, but he protected us. A new guy had taken over the studio while we were in post and just tried to just bury us in insane notes, redo the film completely. It would have been actually a mess. And Spike said, no, you can't touch it. And that was back when they actually listened to filmmakers sometime. Now they'd be like, the heck out of here. We don't care. But
unless it was Blumhouse, you still get director's cut there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
That's that Ty West movie. Leave it alone.
What are you
Can't touch
asking
it.
me? I don't
You
work
guys
in the
are both
production
to blame-
side.
blame
We work on the
for it.
website.
Yeah, we're on the website.
Yeah, but you know this.
you're the
now.
public
I will
face
say,
of Blumhouse. Come
Blum
on.
is
Blum.
amazingly good about kind of bringing up new directors, finding people who have interesting voices, and letting them do stuff.
Being
that,
artist friendly.
Yeah, very artist friendly.
Yeah.
Just not first timers.
No,
He
come on.
First timers. He doesn't do first timers.
What about? I'm curious. What was give us a little bit of the context for Tales of the Hood, because this is 95. So this is before Tales.
It's
from
after.
the, after
This is
Tales from the-
after Tales from the Crypt.
And I mean, I don't remember a lot of anthologies theatrical. So I mean, was that a challenge? Like, what was going on in
Well, there
horror?
weren't a
around
lot,
that time?
just as there aren't now. I mean, I'd been obsessed with anthologies ever since but really the Amicus horror anthologies like Tales from the Crypt and Asylum, all those films. I just loved them to death growing up, and that's why I pushed to do From a Whisper to a Scream, because initially we had been intending to do some sort of art house picture. I'm like, we can't sell that. We're not going to be able to sell it. Let's do a horror anthology. That way we only need the actors for a week at a time, 5 days, and we can get some names and everything. So after a lot of fighting, we ended up doing that. And since in the 10 years between, I'd always wanted to do another horror anthology. So I was actually, the idea for Tales from the Hood came to me while I was making 11 of 45. I was on a walk with a producer friend of mine, Jim Steele, who had come out to visit me. And we were just walking through the woods outside of Austin talking about what's the next thing. And that title came to me. I don't know why. But I got excited about it. And when I got back, started talking to Rusty about it. and it really came together fast.
Yeah.
It was amazing. You look back at it now, we really didn't realize that we were living in a golden era.
Mm.
It didn't look golden until now, when it's so much harder to, so the first 9 movies I made all got theatrical releases.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
That doesn't happen anymore.
And I mean, when I say theatrical releases, at least 400 screens or an up for all of them. And the first one,
early.
I was totally spoiled. The $250,000 budget on a movie, and from a whisper, they did a regional release, what they call it. They start in the East with 400 screens and just go from region to region to region.
Yeah.
Finally got to L.A., played at the Egyptian in Hollywood. There was 8 people in the theater that night, counting the 4 of us. But
still played there.
But it played there, and we were psyched about that.
Yeah.
So
there's very few African American horror film centric. Like back then, Ganja and Hess. On the way here, Ganja and Hess is literally the only one I can think of, unless. I wouldn't count things like Blackula because
my favorite is JD's Revenge.
JD's Revenge. No. That's a pretty smooth.
I like
JD's
Sugar
Revenge.
Hill.
You like Sugar Hill?
Sugar Hill's great.
But those two both have more in common with blaxploitation than they have horror.
True.
And so that's what I mean. Ganja and Hess is actually a straight, its origins almost a European art house horror.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. It feels Eurotrash.
But so I guess the question is did you feel confident there'd be an audience for it without much testing ground?
No.
Yeah.
Those urban
not necessarily.
films,
The problem. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, even without the horror connection, the urban films were very popular at the time because we just had Boys from the Hood and there was a slew of them. I can't even remember.
One I produced, Menace to Society.
Yeah, Menace to Society.
One of Darin's.
Which was magnificently spoofed by CB4. Which is which is probably my favorite satire of all time, CB4, because that was just ridiculous.
That, and then there was a Don't Drink your juice in the hood
while being a menace
to South Central.
Friday was around that time as well. Yeah.
Well, the horror spoofs became hugely popular with the Wayans brothers. I mean, they put a stamp and made huge amounts of money from that. But it's just besides Night of the Living Dead, where you had actually a black lead in a movie, but again, still with a political message.
Yeah.
The movie's still deeply political.
Yeah.
Which is great. I'm missing.
But a little sneakier.
But there it really isn't. I mean, and it's interesting. And I do think JD's Revenge, which is fun, they're ghosts, but they are still movies that are relying on the same things that they already knew were popular. Kind of like what Larry Cohen would have made,
Absolutely.
Which is fun. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting to kind of, and then horror anthology, no less, is very different,
It's very different. And the idea, which is something Rusty pushed really hard, which was to have social messages in the stories. And I think that's what sets it apart, obviously, than other horror anthologies. But, it's always a tricky thing with genre and black films or Hispanic films or whatever in the United States because, those of us who really like horror already go up against the fact that if the movie-going audience is this, maybe 10% of them really like horror movies. I mean, most people you just talk to who aren't in film, they don't like them.
Yeah.
Even people who are in film, we always have trouble convincing what we do.
They don't like them.
Yourself into that.
So you're working off 10% of the total population. Now, talk about 10% of 12%. Black audience, 12% United States. So now you're down to 1% that you have that you're going after. So
Plus
it's much more difficult.
13th movies killed a guy in a shitter. You can't kill the black guy in the shitter. Remember that?
Yeah.
That just felt unforgivable. The guy from Tour of Duty. I like that actor. I just think that's unforgivable.
So it's always been hard to get.
But I'm always surprised there's not more indie voices, because especially now, we're at a point where people are getting interesting art house movies, like the guy who made Creed. What was his first film? Up in San Francisco.
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale, voices like that, I feel eventually they're going to come from horror world too. You know what I mean?
I think it's going to happen.
A different story. That's why I always like like when somebody says, "What would you like to see in horror?" That's kind of what I want to see. Like I want to see Jane Campion make a horror film. Like I want to see these things where the voice is original, but I haven't seen that kind of person make a horror film yet.
Right.
Because I feel like that's the only way to get something different.
Yeah.
You know, different expectations.
You haven't seen anything lately that made you feel that way?
I've seen some stuff, but nothing from like maybe something like that would come from like, you know, Finland or some other culture where you're like, oh,
sure.
But like I've never seen a true South Central horror like set in what it's like to grow up in a place where there's so much fertile ground.
Yeah.
Especially with I remember watching the what's the basketball Baron Davis, the basketball player.
He's in the movies. Yeah,
he produced the Crips and Bloods documentary.
Yeah.
And there was a story in that to me was so horrifying, where this one gang member who grew up there, I think he says like 9 miles from the beach. And he's like 20-something years old, has never seen the beach because to get to the beach, you would have to pass a certain gangland of the other gang and you would be killed. And he tells this story on camera and you're just like, fuck me, man. Like you're like 9 miles from the beach and you've never seen the ocean. And you realize that's real horror. Like just like we're going to ISIS now, I'm sure there'll be a horror film idea will spring up from, you know, the realities of dealing with terrorism. There's anything that's difficult. I feel like there's good, you know, terrain for actual horror movies. That
That's
would
true.
Be more interesting than just another suburban.
I think you're right.
You know.
I mean, we pitched something like that at Imagine not too long ago and got an executive interested in it, but it didn't go. But we're
Well, it feels like
still
kind of thing
trying
almost
stuff
has to be.
like that.
Some of these things have to be made. You need Baron Davis. You need an independent voice.
Yeah.
Independent money, I mean, just to get it made.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the recent Nat Turner movie, A Birth of a Nation, that was a big sale at Sundance. He raised $10 million from athletes.
Oh, so he actually had a real budget. I didn't know. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it.
I heard it was $10 million.
Yeah,
You know,
but it sold for a huge amount.
yeah, it sold for 17. It
Yeah.
could have sold for 20 if he'd been willing to put it on Netflix. So
What's the one thing that you like right now in your career? What's the one thing that you prefer to do? I don't want to say prefer, but what's the one thing that still excites you? I mean, obviously you direct a lot. Like, do you want to focus primarily on the directing? Do you want to do more producing? Do you want to write more? What's
the
what
thing
kind
I
of
like
excite-
the best is being a writer-director on something.
Mhm.
You know, right now, what I've really become obsessed with, and I have a couple of scripts I want to do, is what they call lo-fi sci-fi.
Mhm.
I think that's some of the most interesting voices that are coming out lately
You see Upstream
for
Color?
things, huh? Yeah,
Upstream Color?
Yeah.
Shane Carruth's film. I really
Yeah.
like that.
you know,
Fascinating.
the fact that a guy like Shane Carruth, and I don't know whether or not he's turned down a bunch of stuff or anything,
Mhm.
but I mean, Primer was what, 2004? And he's done 2 films. To me, that's heinous. The guy
No, I
should
mean,
have done
he
10
definitely
films
turned
by
things
now.
down. Definitely did. And
Yeah.
he was always trying. I think there was a big one in between. They wanted to sell fun. He's a control freak. Like,
Okay,
you know, and you hear stories about him, like, he wants to control what he makes.
sure,
The director.
sure.
You know, I'm sure he'll get. I think he's got a bigger one.
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
sure
card.
I
after
hope so.
Primer, he probably
Yeah.
got dozens of offers. I would assume
Yeah.
for big studio sci-fi projects and turned him down.
Because I think that the popularity of Primer really kind of initiated the modern lo-fi movement. But I'll watch those movies, and I always have to find them on iTunes or hunting on Amazon.
You have to dig for him on Netflix.
You have to dig
too.
and wait for them to recommend. Based on the fact that you watched Coherence, you're going to get, now see Time Crimes. Well, I had seen Time Crimes, and that's how I find them. But
You want to make one? Like you have an idea for him?
I'd like to make a lot of them
Make a lot.
personally, if I could.
Yeah.
That's my thing lately. Of course, I will always love the horror films and making those, but as you alluded to earlier, I have a really broad taste in films and I love all sorts of movies, and that's probably something that maybe at times has not been greatly to the benefit of my career, which is that I'm constantly switching. Oh, I want to try that.
Mhm.
Oh, I want to try that. Instead of branding, everybody's now, you got to create your brand, and the brand is you do this kind of movie. And it would get boring to me.
No, I mean, we were saying we've asked you on, we've tried to get you on several times, and every time you're working, it's always on something completely
Yeah,
different.
like
every
I'm
single
on
time.
a Lifetime movie this week.
Which is
Yeah.
great.
What? Okay.
But do you still do workshops? Because I know
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy the workshops.
How often do you do them? So Darin teaches a workshop, which it lasts. Is it 2 days, 3 days? I can't remember the
I
whole.
used to do a 2-day directing workshop,
Right.
and then I decided to split it up. And so now I do one that's all on the camera work and visuals, and another one that's on working with actors. And I cut out some materials because I really like getting deeply into those subjects. But I enjoy the camera workshop probably the most because I teach it a little differently than most people teach workshops. Yeah, I'm talking for 8 or 9 hours, but I show like 200 clips and scenes to illustrate points. And it allows me to expose people to things. There's a lot of Giallo stuff, which is no subject we're going to get into later in my class.
Wow.
There's Mario Bava scenes and Dario Argento scenes.
Because the filmmaking's more present in a lot of those movies. Like, because whenever I'm looking for teachable clips, it's usually you need to find something that's visually actually doing it. A lot of American films are meant to be invisible.
Yeah.
So, like most movies, you're not meant to notice. It's almost like movies made by editors.
Exactly.
To be invisible. So when you go to these like really director-centric, you go to Eastern European films, and suddenly it's so clear what they're doing, teachable. But I'd heard raves of, I remember early on before I met you the first time, Stacey Lane Wilson, who co-hosted, well, she was the host of This Week in Horror when I started, and she told me about you early on, and she had loved being in your workshop and always raved about it.
Oh, great! Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to teach. I do it a couple of times a year usually. If I'm working, I don't do it. If I'm off for a while, I'll say, I'll teach a workshop. I think I did one in January.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I missed it. I want to go to one of them.
I will
at some
invite
point.
you next
time. All right,
time.
let me know for sure. Well, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about our tastes because I most of my conversation with Darin are at a bar weekly. I haven't gone in a long time, even though you text.
I keep texting you
every week. I love it. Every week he just texts me.
What day? What day?
Thursday.
So on Thursdays you should come
because they always do it right after trivia.
Well, tomorrow I can. If you guys are there tomorrow,
yes,
we've got
they
something
always
tomorrow
go.
after trivia. I haven't seen you for a while.
I saw you
I
were there a couple of times.
I was there a few times back a while ago.
You should come again.
I'll go with you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll go right after trivia.
Okay, I'm coming too, guys. I can drink now, so let's go.
Well, actually, I'll wait and see how this Giallo talk goes.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes because you might say,
I haven't heard you touch on this yet.
I can't talk.
You gotta come
talk
for
to
trivia
anymore.
tomorrow night. We've got trivia, and then we'll head over to
Maybe I will.
In fact, it is a 90s. It's an all 90s edition of trivia.
Night.
You are
Yeah.
from your filmography. You're Mr. 90s. So.
All right,
and you have to dress for it. So I'm like,
you don't have to.
I was
Just
dressed
dress
in
as
90s.
yourself.
how do you dress 90s?
Yeah, how do you dress 90s?
Flannel.
No one knows.
Definitely, exactly. There's
Look
like
at that picture of
definite
Elric from a few days ago, and you
things
got
that you
it.
wore in the
Look at
90s.
that
I'm gonna have to look that up and say.
I think it's
Great
because
photo.
teenagers in the 90s, like you've stopped evolving. Like what did you wear in the 2000s? There was a set style for the 2000s too.
I know we're about to go
Is
to
there?
Giallo, but let's
Okay.
just pause for one moment
Let
for
us.
the craziest Wings Hauser story you can tell me before we forget that we are talking about Wings Hauser, because I never get this opportunity.
Okay.
And I love Wings Hauser.
Okay. Now, I love Wings Hauser too.
Let's preface that.
I'm adding him
preface
on
that.
Twitter
Yeah,
as we
he rules.
speak.
But at the time that we did Tales from the Hood, unbeknownst to us, he was in the midst of a very bad period, which I am sure that he has come through by now, of alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And in fact, to this day, I still hear it from Rusty teasing me because I was so excited when we hired him. I was like, "Oh, we got the wingman! We got the wingman!"
He was a Beastmaster.
And he's always like, "Yeah, the wingman." So he was so drunk on the set all the time. We had to rewrite the thing because, well, one, I had to assign a PA who would sneak into his trailer while he was out and try to find all the bottles of booze and remove them because there's no way. And if you watch the movie, there's a few scenes where you can see where he's standing there and he's swaying. And it's like,
It's method, baby. Method.
just stay still. That's all you have to do. And he was the main villain. He was supposed to be the guy who dies last. But Michael Massey ends up dying last because we're like, we can't get through another 3 days with him. He was just, and the thing is, even at the end of it, I liked him. He was a cool guy, but, he just had a problem. And so I guess the story is when it all came to a head, when we told him that he wasn't going to be the last guy anymore, that we were actually going to kill him in the scene we're doing today. We're going to decapitate you in the car. And he just got furious. And we're out on Wilshire Boulevard, and he's screaming at us, "You want to cut my head off?
Oh my God.
You want to cut my head off?" And I was like, well, right now, yeah. So, he called his manager, and it was just a big brouhaha. But finally, that's what we did. And he's very good in the movie.
Yeah, he is good. I wouldn't
good
have known he had an issue during that movie. I knew he had issues.
It got worse as we went through the shoot. The first couple of days, he shot his main dialogue scenes, and he was great. And then we started going out. We shot in the Inglewood Cemetery, which was near where I lived, and it was just gone. Just gone.
But it's Wings Hauser where you go when you can't get Klaus Kinski, baby.
Oh, another thing.
you get the wings.
Another thing. What is this? It's some country in small Eastern European country. I can't remember the name of it right now, but he starts screaming at us, "Do you know how big I am in Slovakia?
Oh my God.
How big I am in Slovakia?"
That is
blah, blah, blah.
That's amazing. I love that.
No,
I hate to say it, you guys deserved everything for not knowing how big
we
the wingman.
You should have known.
But I love the wingman. I would work with him again. I
hear good things now. I think he's in a good place. I think he's clean and like getting into kind of hippie stuff, and he's real liberal. Like when you see his Twitter, it's like super anti-establishment, and
cool.
So it excites me. He's
like
a rubber,
said, he was a guy. I've worked with a few actors who had problems like that, and there's not one of them that I can think of that I dislike them as a person. Mm-hmm. They just had a demon that I had to deal with as a producer or whatever. So,
well, that film you guys had kind of everything. I mean, that movie had so many different things in it. I mean, including like little midget tiny things, tiny toy creatures. But I mean, it's like that's I guess the cool thing about anthologies. It's like you get to make
that's great.
Totally different.
You can do all these things, and cool. The influences that we were able to pour into it are endless. And like you said, that's what I really love about the genre, especially kind of the older style of the genre, where they're like contained stories, but they needed to be complete stories. Now the style seems more, let's put 50 of these in here, and they'll each be a minute long. And I'm like,
I saw Asylum for the first time recently, and I thought it was fantastic.
Asylum's awesome. And you talk about an edgy, cool wraparound.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, yeah, because it's
with
really
great
important
twists.
to your story. I mean, no, I think that we talked about it. We did an episode on anthologies, and we all kind of came to that. There'd be always one great story in a lot of 80s anthologies, but then things like Tales from the Dark Side, there's some ones that really hold up. All the stories come together somehow, and
absolutely
makes a big difference. Yeah. I don't know. Nowadays, the anthology VHS, their weak wraparounds were the weakest part.
Yeah.
It can't be the weakest part. That's what I think. It can't be like.
I also feel like a lot of these where they collect 10, 20 shorts. It's also the gimmick. They're ambiguous on purpose. There's no full story. Yeah. You get to the end of it and you're like, that's it. I don't know if I get it. Whereas
they want the flexibility to plug anything in.
Yeah, they feel very kind of like communal filmmaking. Like, okay, well, we don't have enough money to make one film, so let's make $20,000 film.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with ABCs because there's just so many. Too much information to take in as a viewer. You can't watch all that.
Not on a row.
Yeah, I think anthologies, I had 3 stories were always the right number to me. 3 stories is
3 in a wraparound.
3, yeah.
3 in a wraparound. I think
it's a good formula.
Now you'd have to do more. You'd have to do like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Because people's attention span is just
too short. Yeah.
It's too short.
The hell with people. The hell with them.
The hell with them. Actually, tell you the
truth, whatever the hell you want to do.
Horror anthologies have never been like, except for probably Creepshow and maybe Tales of the Dark, they've never really been big box office anyway. I think they've always been made because filmmakers kind of could make them and like them. I mean, I guess the Amicus ones did pretty well because they made a lot of them, but
they were kind of star-studded of its ilk.
Oh yeah,
but there's not another genre that has quite the longevity and the history of doing anthologies. Like if you think, okay, well, name a couple anthology comedies. I couldn't even name
they don't
5.
do them. No.
So yeah, there's not another genre that does them with
It's
quite
like
the
campfire
excess.
tales. You would tell a couple. You wouldn't go to a campfire and tell one story, right? You go to a campfire in real life and you tell multiple horror stories.
You've seen Dead of Night, right? The original?
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
the one that to me started them, and they
like
didn't make.
Twilight Zone.
Well,
there wasn't another one made for how many years after that one, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, that one was by far one of the best starts. So. And the Dead of and I love this. There's the second Dead of Night that came out in the 70s.
That I've never seen.
I bet you have. It's got Bobby at the end of it.
Oh yeah, the last
best
segment is
anthology
great.
segment, like one of the best anthology
the Richard
segments.
Matheson
I've
one?
The Richard Matheson one, Bobby. It was made for
the one
TV
she
movie.
told me about. I loved it.
Yeah, and no one has seen it. And the way that I stumbled on this is I was actually teaching a class, and I wanted to show them the 1945 British Dead of Night.
Sure.
And so I went on this hunt for this, and it was really hard to find the DVD. Like the only thing it's been released on, it's on a double feature with Queen of Hearts, which is a movie I've never even seen.
Right.
But it was really expensive. It was like $60. And then I went to try to rent it, and at the time I was in New York.
You're talking about the 1945 one.
The 1945. So
I
was
have
like,
that double disc.
yeah, I have the double disc now too, or Queen of Spades. I think it's Queen of Spades. That's it. But so I went to Mondo Kim's, which was still open in New York, and was like, I need copies of Dead of Night. And they didn't have like covers on things. They couldn't tell me the details. They just were like, we have like 6 movies called Dead of Night. And I was like, you know what? I'll take them all. I'll take them home. I'll watch them. I'll see what they are. Maybe they're the movie I'm looking
There was
for.
one done in the early 2000s too.
That was also called
On an
Lighthouse,
island.
and
On
it's
the
really
island.
good.
The scene with the can in the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, it's
Awesome scene.
amazing. And
Awesome
I
scene.
stumbled on that movie in this process. And
Yeah.
it's, by the way, guys, see Dead of Night, Lighthouse from 1996, I think it is. It's a British film.
It's really cool.
It's about a prison ship that is hauling all of these criminals, and it crashes on an island. It like crashes on a reef, and all of these criminals wash up on this island. And the only thing on there is a lighthouse with like 2 lighthouse keepers in it. But one of the people that the ship was transporting is a serial killer called the Headhunter. And all the criminals are like scared to death of him. And so it's a serial killer picking off criminals on this island.
Why is it called Dead? Is it any connection to anthology?
No, not at all. But the other one that I stumbled on was this, and I think it's from the late 70s,
The
early
70s one.
80s.
Yeah, and they're all Matheson
made
stories.
for TV. They're all Matheson stories. The first one has Egg Bailey Jr. in it. The second one's a vampire story, not so good. The third one is the scariest anthology segment I've ever seen.
All right, I
Like,
gotta
you
find
would
it.
love
Bobby.
it. It's
I
like
gotta
the woman
find
who
it.
loses her son, and then like the suburban woman looks totally normal. Then the next thing she's painting a giant pentagram in her living room. And you're like, whoa! And she's taking extreme measures to communicate, and it just gets so
All
good.
right.
Yeah,
I've gotta
like her
see it.
son's, all you know at the beginning is her son is dead, and then it gets fucked up.
The guys who were on our show when we did our anthology, Ryan Spindle and Ben, they had a really cool idea, which I would love to see, which is like, let's just go through all our favorite anthologies and just take our favorite stories and then make a master supercut and screen it. So just our favorite
The best
stories
skits of all
and
them.
try
I
to
like that.
and it would be so much fun to just, because there are so many good
But the thing
individual
is,
stories.
it's different for everybody, right?
It is.
Because we go
Totally.
around the room for creep show or whatever
We
it is,
all
and we're all
disagree.
going to figure out,
But there are
different skit.
definitely some, like even on, I was doing my Netflix. I do a best of things showing on Netflix each week
All right,
for
yeah.
Blumhouse. And this week I put on VHS too. And I was like,
I
you
really
know,
liked
some of them are
VHS too.
great. Some of them are okay. Safe
Especially the
Haven.
story one.
that was my
Safe Haven
favorite
is
of that.
fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's like one that everyone agrees with is
I
like
the
some of
alien
them are
abduction
I
one
don't
was
like that
cool
one.
too. That was
You don't
fun.
like Safe Haven?
No, I don't like VHS 2 at all.
Oh, Safe Haven's
Really?
perfect. That
Yeah.
short.
That was my favorite of the series by
Yeah, I
far.
gotta see it again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the time I asked, because Darin, we could talk about any sort of
We
subgenre of
actually
horror
could.
with Darin,
We could.
and it would be fine. But he picked Giallo because we haven't really done Giallo movies or Italian movies in general. When did you first? This is always fascinating to me. Like, I assume that you probably came into it either through Bava or Argento. What was the first Argento movie you saw, and what do you remember about it? Because I know, like, to me, it was fascinating when we had Bill Lustig on, for example, and he was telling us how he saw a bird with the crystal plumage on 42nd Street for the first time, and it like blew his mind because
My first was Suspiria.
Suspiria.
It totally blew my mind. I'd never seen
Theatrically, or
anything
how
like
did you?
it.
How did
That's how I
that?
was too.
I don't remember. I might have seen it at a retrospective screening,
Mhm.
probably, but I don't remember where. And I usually remember where I've seen movies.
Yeah.
But Suspiria is a movie that I'll make you forget everything else about how you saw it because it's so insane.
Yeah.
It's also got a visual language like I'd never seen that before. Like not just the colors, but the way they were used. I'd never seen anything at that high a level on a technical level, but also so fucking dangerous.
I credit that movie, and I've said this in half a dozen interviews, but I credit that movie to making me want to stop being in the audience and want to go elsewhere. Because I'd always it never even dawned on me and I saw it my senior year of high school on a Sunday afternoon with Ben Owen, and we'd gone to the Blockbuster video store, and he was just this friend I always watched horror movies with, and it was like
Quote
2 o'clock.
Mark's friend.
Oh my God! If you guys had said friend, we wouldn't question it.
There's no double standard here, Bekah. Go
on.
Oh
my God! But that was like, and I remember it vividly on that Sunday afternoon. It was like the first time that I was like, I want to know how they did that. Like, did they paint the walls? Like, I wanted to know more about the movie than just like, that was cool.
It was Tenebrae where they painted the walls.
With the black.
Literally in a scene.
Yeah. But it was the first one where you watch Return of the Living Dead, and at the end of it, I would just be like, that's a cool movie. Let's watch something else. But that was the first one where I was like, I want to read about this film and know more. And that was a big thing.
Well, the hotel where they're actually staying, the first murder happens, the design of even the wallpaper
unbelievable.
is just at a crazy production level that you don't see in horror movies because they don't have money. But this somehow had money because everything was designed. Everything was designed.
Yeah.
Well, he was on a little roll with his first 3 films that done pretty well. So he got a budget, but. After Suspiria, then I was, hooked on Argentos, and I was going back and watching them all, and it just grew from there. And the thing about Giallos is, if you ask me, what are your favorite ones? I start naming them. Half the ones that I name, if you go, what happens in that one? I'm like, I have no idea. I don't remember the plot.
All I know is it's named after an animal part.
There's probably a color in there. There was a
cool
blue
stuff
scorpion.
There was some cool stuff.
Edwin Finnick takes her top off. I remember that.
I have EF next to all our movies on my notes here.
And then J&B. They drink J&B, and that's all.
I love Edwin Finnick.
Oh yeah, she's
anything she's in, I'm gonna watch it.
She is mesmerizing. We've talked about Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward a lot on here.
Oh,
I think stylistically, that's the one that I always think about because it's so different and it feels it's dangerous.
Sergio Martino is underrated. I think people think of Argento and they think of Bava, but Martino he made some really. Great. So all the colors of the dark.
Yeah, all the colors of the dark.
Awesome.
I won't say who, but there is a well-known horror celebrity that we've talked about on the show before, but has never been on the show, that has a giant, I swear, 20 feet wide portrait of Edward Finnick in his living room.
Of course.
Wow.
Man, I want to go over his house.
Well, Eli Roth cast her in Hostel, too.
Yeah. And it was great to see her. And she looked awesome. I was like...
I swear. Yeah.
She looked awesome. Right. And one of hers has... one of my favorite Giallo titles, which is saying something.
Can I guess?
Go ahead and guess.
Because this is called Guess That Giallo. Darin, I just have always wanted to say this to you, but your vice is a locked room and only I have the key.
That's it.
Bing, 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 bing.
Title.
That title is
also she's holding a pussycat at one point over her naked body. It's
if you watch the brand new Blue that just came out from Kino, I produced I'm sorry, it wasn't even Kino. But I produced the bonus features on that one.
Which one of that?
Nice.
Yeah.
That came out on Blue? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
so
gorgeous.
behind.
It's gorgeous.
I didn't know that was on Blue. That's
we
awesome.
have full interviews with Eli Roth and everything on it. But yeah,
that's awesome.
I produced them with it was Jim Kuntz and I did all the bonus features.
That's a Poe film, right? That's a Poe, like a very light Poe, because it ends with the cat and the wall. It's like it's a super. I think they even make reference to it, but
from
it's hard to reference this.
Yeah, I think so. But
that's a very good one. So I think Martino is really super stylish.
And did he do Torso?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he definitely is. Then he's really strong. I haven't watched my Blu-ray,
Case
but
of
I
the Scorpion's Tail,
which is
pretty good. Torso.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was the. I think it was the first lesbian group sex scene that I'd seen in a movie.
And that you remember.
You do remember that.
I'm
sorry, you just don't forget it.
It's funny because the one thing they had, it's like they're so different from American slasher films that it's funny because they should be so closely related, and you realize, no, they're so different because they're so stylized. And if you go look at the talent who worked on some of the early ones, especially, one of the best ones, I came to it later. After watching almost all of Argento's other work, I got back to his first, Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Sure.
Shot by Vittore Storano.
Right.
One of the greatest cinematographers of all time, who shoots freaking Apocalypse Now.
Oh, wow.
And you can see it because it is so well put together. I mean, that is a beautifully designed. And then
it's nice to have Sergio Leone as your mentor.
Well, yeah, but then the one that really I talked about when we talked about Giallo one early on in our show. I can't remember when it was, but I stumbled across one.
Lawrence.
We did an Italian horror show with Lawrence Raffel from FearNet,
and it might have been Stacy actually who put me onto this one, but it was The Fifth Chord, and Storano.
I've got that one.
Shot that one, and that's Franco Nero.
Yeah,
and that is a beautiful, like one of the best made horror, like genre films I've ever seen.
Beautiful.
Just every frame is a painting, literally. And so there's these movies. I wonder what the appeal is. Like, I mean, so I'm always trying to think. Like, they're so stylish. It's pure cinema.
I started writing down a list. I was like, what is?
Yeah, what's turning you on? Like, what do you think it is?
Well, number one is the hyper stylish videos, visuals. I mean, if you start watching these movies, especially watching a bunch of them in a row, you feel like you're in a snap zoom arms race. You know. But I mean, the visuals are. And they're just in your face. You know, there's no pretense of, oh, we're trying to be subtle here. We're trying, blah, blah, blah. No, it's,
it's pretty fetishistic.
Yeah, and everybody is trying to one-up each other, I think. And the perverse sexuality, which at the time they were coming out was even way more perverse than it's considered
especially Strange
now.
Vice. I mean, that one, she's getting glass broken on her and slapped around and, it's pretty intense.
Oh, this is super bizarre.
Yeah.
Lizard and woman's skin.
Yeah.
I actually just watched that last night for the first time on Blu-ray. And I mean...
Did you watch the full version, or did you watch the...
I don't know. I would assume
there's two versions, unless they've
I would assume
totally
the Blu-ray they
fixed
installed
it.
Because
there were two versions that came out, I know, on the DVD. One is the complete version, and one's the American version. And in the complete one, they had to use degraded footage from an old VHS. So, you'll see it drop down when it gets to those scenes.
Yeah.
But
whatever I saw yesterday was a brand new 2K scan.
But don't feel bad, because no matter which version you watch, it's still got the other Giallo characteristic that I love, which is completely...
I mean, that's what it looked like on my TV.
Awesome.
So excited. I was like, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's funny.
They have incomprehensible plots, which somehow attract me in that genre.
Because it's unpredictable. You can't possibly imagine where it's
going
go.
in, you're like, you know what, anything could happen.
Yeah.
And
it's
it
like
may
a
not make
confusing
any
film
sense.
noir mixed with a slasher movie, which is like unusual. Like, I also think like it's they're always a desirable lifestyle. Like slasher films are usually dumb teenagers going in the woods. That's easily recognizable, and you don't necessarily want to be that. But then you see these people who are all kind of wealthy,
and they're all living in these cool 70s Italian apartments,
on mopeds,
which are just awesome.
Yeah,
see, those weren't the ones that I got into. I got into the ones that were like the House with Laughing Windows.
Yeah.
Where they're...
Is that Giallo? I don't even know.
It's still Giallo.
It feels more like a
horror
film.
It's still totally Giallo because it's still a slasher. It's still art-based. It's still got that weird music. It's still very kind of swinging 70s. But but those are the ones that I really liked.
Let's talk about that, though, for a second. The issue he just brought up, which is, what is a Giallo?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the line drawn? Because, Suspiria... It's a slasher movie. It has a masked black glove killer, but it also has a witch.
Yeah. And it doesn't have that that high fashion element that usually played.
If I was writing a book on Giallo, I wouldn't even include it personally. Like just me, I know I could be, but I wouldn't include it.
That's the thing. So many, and so many of Argento's.
The Tenebrae is a perfect Giallo, though.
Yeah.
Perfect Giallo. Like that might be.
All right. So you're bringing up an interesting point.
Yeah.
I spoke either last week or the week before, and I just kind of rewatched it before I came here.
What about
Tenebrae came out on Blu-ray this last week, and there's a great feature-length documentary called Yellow Fever: The Rise and Fall of Giallo, which gives the whole history.
I haven't seen that. Great.
Because I don't know the whole history. I'm confused by a lot of it.
Sure.
And so, according to the doc,
that's by design.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be confusing.
Yeah.
According to the doc, or the way they set it up, they explain that these are all based on a series of like pulp little novels, like the
Yellow,
sort of thing you would
yellow
buy.
backed.
And they all had the yellow
They're
covers,
the
which
European
is why.
version of the Penny Dreadfuls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why they're called
There's
Giallo.
still some on
Giallo
eBay.
means yellow.
I always
Yeah.
look them up, looking for a cool cover. I'm
still
like,
make
ooh.
them. Yeah,
Sweet.
they still make them to this day,
Yeah, yeah.
apparently. So,
Oh, right. I didn't
That
know
I
that.
didn't know.
No, I didn't know.
I believe they still make them.
Oh,
so, so in the doc, they talk about the books themselves, and then they cite a lot of like early versions of what were inspired by these books, but really they credit Bava.
The girl who knew too
The
much.
Girl Who Knew Too Much is technically considered maybe the first one. The first one
it hits.
that
I was about to talk about it a minute ago.
To me, it's Blood and Black Lace.
and that's
because
but that's
the color
right after.
pattern, the
The
color
color
pattern of that is supposed
patterns.
to, but the
and-
mystery of that one is definitely a Giallo.
Sure.
I mean, it's got the same build up. You
The
know?
Well,
black
those are
glove
the two.
killer.
Yeah.
With the,
Yeah.
who's
She leaves little
completely
traps.
covered. All the things.
It's also one of his most beautiful films. A lot of people probably have never watched this one. That one is like one of his best made films. Like it feels like he could have been Hitchcock.
Oh yeah.
Like, at
well,
that point,
I have two
like,
favorite
sound-wise.
Bava films, and that's one of them, and the
Yeah.
other one is The Whip in the Body,
Mhm.
which is, once again,
Fringe,
it's
yeah.
a movie that starts with a slasher murder,
Mhm.
the killing of Christopher Lee, and then it becomes a ghost story.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
is it a Giallo?
I don't,
I don't
think I've seen
know.
that one. Now I'm excited to see it. I don't.
The
think I've
Whip in
ever-
the Body.
Yeah, I don't think I've
You
ever seen
have
it.
to see this.
It's not
movie.
one set at a carnival circus or something.
No, this movie is set at a castle, a European castle, and it's a family that.
Modern, like a modern film. Or
No,
set in
no,
the
no,
past?
no.
Okay.
It's totally gothic,
Okay. Yeah. That's
and
probably-
probably takes place in the 1700s or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And Christopher Lee returns home. He is the prodigal son, but the problem is that he's the black sheep of the family. Everybody, including his father, brother, etc., despises him.
Mhm.
He totally messed over his wife, who has now married his brother, and he's responsible for the still housekeeper's daughter's suicide
Mhm.
because he threw her over. So, he comes back. It's worse than a bad
Baggage.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And somebody murders him.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
But the thing about it, the movie is that he had this sadomasochistic relationship with the now remarried wife. And so when he comes back, one of the first scenes is they come together on the beach, and he pulls out a whip, and he starts, "You always did love violence."
Wow.
Hold on, I was in the bathroom. What movie is this?
The Whip in the Body.
Oh, I own this and have never watched
You
it.
gotta
Yeah,
watch
he's
this
just
movie.
saying,
Your
he's
copy.
saying we have to see it.
I've
It's
never
one of his
seen it.
favorite.
After they murder
I
him-
have the Blu-ray and I've never seen
He
it.
comes back as a ghost, not only starts taking people out, but continues his sadomasochistic relationship
So
with this
it's
woman
What?
as a
Okay.
ghost. And this is 1960, 61, Technicolor, incredibly beautiful. One of Bob's best
Yeah.
films. John Landis loves it, and I know that because he came to the screening at the Cinematheque and spoke
Oh, that's
for a
cool.
minute
Wow.
years ago. So yeah, I love.
So yeah, if you're including something from the 17th century in Giallo, then it could be super broad because it's so hard.
Yeah.
Now. I think of it as saying like set in 1960, it feels like a time period thing, but I guess it could be extended.
Yeah, you're just trying to figure out where's the line between a horror movie and a giallo.
Mhm.
Many giallos you would characterize as a horror movie, but
Something more like a
take a
thriller.
movie like The Psychic, or
Yeah,
even
like-
Deep Red, which is, considered one of the quintessential giallos.
Yeah.
But how does it start? It starts with a woman with psychic powers
Mhm.
hearing the murderer's voice
Mhm.
on an audience and getting killed. So once again, it has a supernatural element.
I
to
think
it.
that stems from Argento's aesthetic because so in this doc they talk about Bava kind of being the predecessor, but the first real like through and through Giallo, what everyone recognizes is the bird with the crystal plumage, and then it's like Argento's next movie, which was I think the Cat and Tales? Is
The one that was hard to find for a long time, right? The one that
Four
drummer.
Four Flies.
Flies
on
on
Gray
Gray
Flies on
Velvet.
that
Gray
one was hard to
Velvet.
find for a long time.
So
I think that's the film where he really started, his style really started to
Fetishistic.
gel. And then Deep Red, he really just hit the stride with it.
yeah.
If you look at the first two, they're stylized, but it's not the style that you really,
That he goes to.
that you started associating with
Well, he's
him.
almost in
Kind of started.
surrealism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Suspiria and Inferno is pure. I mean, Inferno is like one of the craziest
I love
visually
Inferno.
told films ever made.
Mhm.
There's very
Yeah.
little story, very little plot, and yet it's like this crazy, bizarre visual cinema. Like
Well,
her
It is.
underwater and all those
that
scenes.
scene is so great.
Yeah.
The underwater scene in Inferno.
Which
And
was,
I love the-
which
I
was
just
directed
love
by
Bava.
Lamberto Bava. Actually.
When Mario
Oh, wow.
Bava came back and helped on the final effect shot, of the devil. So
And I love the voiceover at the beginning
Mhm.
because I hadn't realized that we were in the midst of a trilogy. And
Yeah.
it's like, the second mother.
Yeah, you're like,
Blah, blah,
oh.
blah.
Inferno's a really wacky movie.
And the
It's
third
really
mother will be an Italian stripper, but we won't talk about that.
But I guess my point about Argento is like in the same way that we say, Alfred Hitchcock made all these type of movies, and now we use the term Hitchcockian.
Right.
I almost feel like Giallo is the Argento version of saying Argento, whatever, like Hitchcock. You know what I mean?
I still
He's
break
so
them up.
associated with it.
I
But
think
I
it's
mean,
just one
We,
element.
we
of
were
the-
saying so Suspiria is a Giallo, but it's got the witch and all that. Like, why is it
Yeah.
still considered that? That's my point. Is like just pretty much anything with Argento's name
Well,
because of how strongly.
I think it's
I
anything
guess
Italian.
You wouldn't consider it phenomena / creepers by that
No,
standard.
not
I
a
would,
because-
No, I think
Yeah.
it's
You still
bad
have-
shit, crazy horror, just with lots of different. It felt
But
like
you
a lot
still
of
have
horror
a
films.
black gloved killer.
It,
I think, yeah,
it
yes.
opens like a Giallo.
Yeah.
Like if I remember, it's the girl and the head on the
Yeah, on
going
the
down the
sky,
fountain. You're like,
Honestly,
the
Darren, I think it
Skyrim.
comes down to one thing. If there's J&B product placement, it's a Giallo.
There it
If
is.
it's
That's
out,
it. That's
it's
the
out.
only
No.
And that's
only
a song.
prerequisite.
I mean, I know people who also put Fulci into the Giallo realm as well.
Well, he did
Well,
some.
yeah,
quite a
I mean,
handful.
Lizard in a Woman's Skin.
There's-
Well, I mean, like
Sure.
Beyond and House by the
which,
Cemetery,
Don't
like even
Torture
some,
a Duckling is
Torture
the
a
main
Duckling.
one.
yeah,
And that's
And
a
New
great
York
freaking
Ripper.
movie.
Barbara Boucher.
Yeah, New York
Yeah.
Ripper for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
New York
New York
like,
Ripper's
and New York
definitely.
Ripper's
Yeah.
weird
The
because
sidekick,
it
as we
does kind
said.
of go into like an American slasher film in a weird way, but it's just
What the Black Cat? I mean,
yeah.
I think
Yeah, that's
the
a
Black
straight
Cat is his most underrated film by far, and probably one of his best made. But
I've
people
never seen
don't
a good
appreciate
copy
I've
of
it.
it.
never
That's the thing.
seen
It was
it.
on El Rey.
It's
when they first
beautifully
started El Rey.
directed.
Yeah, they had some nice sequences.
But it doesn't have the thing that I think, for me, hurts most. I think Lucio Fulci. I mean, he was a very talented filmmaker, but after he became known for gore, he'd make movies like The Beyond or House by a Cemetery. Love the movie, but you might as well go to the bathroom a couple of points when the movie stops and it's like, time for the gore. And we're just going to have a 3-minute music cue of slowly oozing. And I'm like, this is only in the movie because it's expected.
It's like, well, he gives a little
You know.
Herschel Gordon Lewis. It's kind of
Yeah.
No, it's very Grand Guignolish, where it's
Yeah.
very much on display. Like we're gonna watch spiders rip somebody's lips off for like 10
Yeah.
minutes, and then it'll go back to the movie. But when
But
I was first watching
the
these
Black
films,
Cat,
those
yeah.
spiders ripping the lips off were what attracted me to these
Well,
movies.
yeah.
That's
So-
what I'm saying. That's what, but
That's his brand. Yeah,
Yeah.
part of
that's
what he
his
did.
brand. But I think a movie like The Black Cat, because he doesn't do that, actually, from a just pure filmmaking standpoint,
Well, the
stands
last
up
20
a lot
minutes
better
of New
than
York
some of the
Ripper
others.
have some really good filmmaking. It's the build-up is such a nasty, ugly movie, but
Right.
the last 20 minutes, some of the kills and moves in it are really well made. I mean, you still got it. It's just he's like a madman. Cat in the Brain, you're just like, well, who the hell is this guy? I mean, Cat in the Brain's just fucking weird.
I mean,
Yeah.
the end of The Beyond
Yeah.
definitely was influential on the end of Tales from the Hood.
Oh.
That idea
yeah.
that you are in hell now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, not that it hadn't been done a few
Yeah.
other times,
Right.
but that was probably my favorite execution of that. I still watch that scene all the time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just so powerful, and their eyes
Yeah.
go white when they
Yeah,
reverse
love
and
it.
It's
It's a
just
perfect
that.
ending.
If only we
it's
could have
just a
gotten to
great
the
Beyond the
sequel.
Beyond.
Yes.
Did you ever hear that story?
If you
What is
haven't,
this? No,
listen
tell
to
us.
when Bob Morawski was on our show, because
Ah.
he told us about the proposed sequel Beyond the Beyond and blew our minds.
Yeah, they found the
It's-
screenwriter, and he had a script for it and everything. It was called Beyond the
They were
Beyond.
going to make it.
Awesome.
And then next time they looked
Is
him
it
up,
like-
he was no longer alive.
He wasn't alive,
No
so
one
now
could
there's
find
nobody
There's
could find the
no
script
script.
anymore.
Well, he had been taken
It's
out
a
by the
myth.
devil,
It's the
obviously.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
going to write Beyond the Beyond.
Beyond the Beyond.
So I want to talk titles because that's one of the things that really stands out about these. And for a while, there was a
Unbelievable.
website called Giallo Generator.
It's
where,
still there.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll
I
send you
gotta
the
look
link.
that up.
Because a
Where-
couple of months ago, I did like is this a real Giallo film? And
We're
I
going to
used
play that game with Darren right now.
dear.
I
Okay.
did it
You'll
for the
probably burn
trivia.
me on some of them.
No, because
there's so
Elric
many-
Kane did this, ready? This is great, though.
I know
Is
everybody,
this the one I posted up on Blumhouse?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you
of them
posted-
are-
didn't you
Here we
post
go.
mine?
Yeah, I
Okay.
used yours and then I added a few
Oh,
more.
okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
All right, so here's a title. All you need to tell me, is this a real Giallo movie or a fake one? Okay, ready?
I'm going to get burned on this, but
The
go ahead.
Iguana with the Tongue of Fire.
No. I never heard of that.
Actually, I don't know the answer because...
I don't think so either.
No,
I don't
it's
think
not.
so.
No, it's real.
Oh, it is real.
No.
I read
sorry,
the quiz and I didn't know it was
Wow.
All
real.
right, so that's real.
Seriously?
Okay, that's
okay.
That's
I
what it says.
put the
It's
dates
a real,
at the
yeah,
end.
it's a real horror film from 1971. Okay,
Okay.
all right, now I figured out. I figured this out.
Is
Okay, I
it
was gonna
possible
say-
to find it anywhere, though?
Probably
if,
not.
if I put these in there, it was ones that I was able to locate on Amazon.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's how I
Okay.
found these.
Okay, all
I
right.
want
now-
the fatted calf one.
Okay.
No, wait, that's my favorite. All
So
right.
that's on Amazon?
If it
No,
may
no,
not
the
be
iguana
available,
with the-
but all
No,
I
this
did.
is a website, so this is the.
This
This is from one of our quizzes that we did on the site, but it was actually a round of trivia.
Yeah, it's
that
a
we-
round.
right.
This is written between Elric and I.
There's
We
nothing
wrote
that's
this.
too far out to be a Giallo title,
That's
so
the
I can
fun of
only
it.
go as have I heard it.
All right, so to Darren and our audience at home, The House of the Yellow Carpet, real or fake?
really sounds like a Giallo title, but I'm going to say no because I can't remember.
It is a real movie from
Yeah.
1983.
Again, I
I
would have
told
said no
you.
too because carpet sounds weird. Yeah. But
Okay, number 3.
Now, I also say that for me, as you put these dividing
Yeah.
lines, the beginning of the 80s is really kind of the end
The end of the
of the
Giallo.
Giallos, because it seems to me when I look at Giallos or Italian slasher movies from the 80s, they've now started to become influenced.
Well, in
by
America's
all the
erotic
American
thrillers.
ones.
I think American erotic thrillers took a lot from
Yeah.
Giallo,
Yeah.
and then it just made it more narrative.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So they just became more bloodbaths and the style kind
Yeah,
of
and sex.
faded
Okay.
out of them.
A yellow parrot in a glass coffin.
We got to make that if that hasn't been used. 'Cause
Once again, I haven't heard of that one, so I'm just gonna keep saying no until I'm right.
Sure, you're right. That is
Yeah.
a fake title.
That's
That
why
is
we're
a
making
fake
it.
title.
Yeah.
And I will tell you guys that the poster for House with the Yellow Carpet,
oh, that's
pretty amazing.
Let me see that.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm ready to go.
I like the poster.
Okay, the black cat on the blue satin pillow.
so
no,
specific. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Nope,
Yeah.
it's fake.
It's
Yes,
fake.
that's one's
Okay.
referencing too many movies.
A lizard in a woman's skin. We already
I mean,
said.
because
We
that's a
know
great
that
title.
one.
Yeah.
It is
That's
a
a
great
great
title.
title.
Real movie.
You
from
haven't
1970.
gotten to one of my favorites. We'll see if you yet.
The
if you mention-
scorpion with one red eye.
No, well, there's a case of the scorpion's tail, but I don't think there's one with one red eye.
You're correct. It's fake.
Yeah.
Kill the fatted calf and roast it.
Kill a calf?
Kill the fatted calf and roast it.
No.
That is
It's
a
real.
That's a real
Wow.
Giallo.
That was my
1970.
favorite one when
And
I
we
came
need to
across
watch
it.
that
Oh my
immediately.
God.
Yeah,
I
it
gotta
comes,
find
Kill
these
the
movies.
fatted
it comes
calf and
right
roast
up.
it.
Oh man, that one's got a good poster
Look
too.
at that.
Awesome.
Can you believe
Yeah.
that exists? I
That's
love it.
actually a
can
good
believe
question.
it.
I wonder why we got certain Giallos here, like certain names
Oh,
made it to
and
here.
Ennio
But others,
Morricone did the soundtrack for Kill the Fatted
Wow.
Calf and Roast It.
He
Amazing.
did
he
a
did a
few.
lot. Yeah, he did a lot
Yeah.
of films.
All right, 3 more left. Death is a broken doll in an eagle's talons.
Gosh, I don't know that one, so I'll say no. But
That is fake.
And it's a fake.
That's
Not
all that's
anymore. Greenlit.
Strip nude for your killer.
on my list.
Hell
me
yeah.
too.
Wow.
Big
That
fan
one.
of that one.
And the thing I love about Strip Nude for Your Killer is the movie where they modernized the Black Glove Killer and took away the black head thing and hat and replaced it with the black motorcycle helmet,
Oh yeah.
which
Ah.
I don't think it happened.
That's a Martino
before
one
that
too, or
one.
not?
Strip Nude for Your Killer? No, it's not. I don't think that's
looking it up.
Martino.
Who's
But
that?
it is Edwidge Finch.
Yeah, there's
It-
another guy. There's a Newsy, or is there's another name
I don't remember.
of another guy who did a lot at that time.
I'm looking it up right now. It was directed by Andrea Benacci.
Yeah, that's not the one, but that person made a couple other films that
I think Blue Underground did a Blu-ray of it because I definitely own it on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I have it. I have it.
yeah.
I don't think I have the Blu-ray. I still have it. Yeah.
Now, when did you discover Giallo films? Do you remember the first, like, besides Suspiria, like, do you remember the first time was that typical?
I really started watching them a lot in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So most of them I saw on VHS for the first time, or if I'd go to a retrospective and start seeing them, and then you start hunting them down. And I'm still on it because there's so many that I haven't seen that you can't find or that are hard to find.
There's actually an American film that just rang to mind when you said that, The Spiral Staircase. You know that film?
Great film.
That film has a lot of Giallo.
Robert Siodmak.
Yeah.
He was considered the
noir.
poor man's Hitchcock at a particular point, but he's brilliant.
But that film looks like it also has a lot of the roots of.
Oh yeah,
you know,
it really does. You know, peeking out the killer peeking out of the closet.
The only reason I brought it up is because just then when I said the word Giallo, I went to that Chicago Weekend of Horrors or whatever it's called, like a few years back, and I met Lamberto Bava, and I was asking everyone what a horror film that influenced them, and he said, "Oh, The Spiral Staircase." He couldn't say much in English, but he could say The Spiral Staircase. And I was like, "Oh, I love that film."
It's a really cool movie.
Yeah,
it's a really cool movie, and you're right.
Blade in the Dark was one of the last ones.
I love that one.
Yeah.
That would almost be maybe that's like basically the cutoff. I mean, that is looking like. Because when the son of a director starts making them, you know, it's probably the second cycle. You're probably towards the end of something. You know?
I don't know. We need to see House with the Yellow Carpet to decide, Jen.
That's true.
Well, what are some of your favorites? Because obviously there's so many, and
there's so many.
So it's more of a recommendation thing. I have a box set here that I've only watched one of these movies.
Last Night's insane.
Last Night's great.
It's pretty silly.
I have this box set.
Yeah, there's a Giallo collection, and it's got The Case of the Bloody Iris. That one I've seen. Short Night of Glass Dolls.
I would tell people to watch all of them. None of them are among my.
You didn't mention.
Saw Her Die.
You didn't mention What Happened to Solange.
I just watched that. That was
I rewatched that. What Happened to Solange was way fucked up.
I mean,
like not even just the movie, but like what happened to her. Oh my god,
sick stuff.
And it's Camille Keaton.
Forgot about
I Spit on Your Grave. Camille Keaton.
Yeah, first role.
That's her. She is Solange.
Yeah.
And we talked about it on the show, but no one realized. I didn't realize it when I saw it either. It wasn't until years later. I saw her at a signing, and she had a picture, and I was like, "Oh my god, you're Solange as well!" Like I really didn't realize she was because she grew up there for a while. So
wow.
Yeah, she was maybe she was French or something.
Yeah.
Even though it's weird.
Hit us with some recommendations before we.
Yeah, let's get a couple of recommendations before we head out.
If we didn't
mention. We've talked
anything
about
on your list that we didn't
I would say people should see The Psychic. I really like that one.
That's Fulci.
Which is Fulci, right?
That's Fulci. Jennifer O'Neill. Tenebrae, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who haven't seen Tenebrae. In fact, when people would come by my house, I used to say, "Oh, you got to see this," and I would just show them the roof scene from Tenebrae, which is one of the gutsiest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Mm-hmm. To trust that you're going to get a cue that carries you for a 5-minute tracking shot over roof tiles is total insanity.
And seeing it on
it's
a
pretty
big
unbelievable.
Is amazing. I also love the ending. I love the ending. I heard Darin Scott just screaming.
What about
a lot of people haven't seen the Martino ones.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of those either.
So All the Colors of the Dark
is awesome.
Yeah,
All the Colors.
It's awesome.
I love All the Colors of the Dark. It's see, that's one that I would have problems calling a giallo just because it's kind of a bit off. It's about this woman who keeps getting kind of invited to join. I'll call it a cult, for lack of a better way of describing it. It's a really psychedelic cult with a guy with really long fingernails dancing, and he wears robes and everything. And they start kind of infiltrating her life and kind of killing those around her.
Scientology retrospect.
Yeah, but it's really, you could tell it's kind of a giallo film blended with like a hippie film, but with a Euro trash persona. Like I don't classify it as a giallo; I classify it as Euro trash.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
I never saw that part of the
video store. Am I on this one?
Euro trash, hippie scum
Euro
movie.
Trash. There's so many.
It's like swinging 70s.
That's my favorite
60s.
subgenre, hippie scum movies.
Hippie scum movies.
Well, another movie like that I like that Bava did is $5 for an August Moon. Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about the stylish 70s Italian film. That's one.
And yeah, ironically, his slasher
some.
movie that he made, which is Friday 13th, which is Bay of Blood.
Oh, Twitch of the Death.
Twitch of the Death Nerve is the best giallo title. That's not actually a giallo film, and it wasn't even the final title. It was Bay of Blood. But unfortunately, it's the best title, I think.
Yeah,
probably my favorite of all titles, Twitch of the Death Nerve. But it's a good movie. It's actually a good movie. It's just not a giallo film. That is an actual American slasher movie by Bava.
And I've never been a big fan of Bay of Blood.
Yeah. That's probably why, because it's not a Giallo film. It's a slasher
It just doesn't,
You said you show scenes and stuff sometimes in your
class. Well, I show scenes from Blood and Black Lace.
Mm-hmm.
I would show scenes from The Whip and the Body if I ever come up with a justification for it. Because I said, that's one I would recommend. A lot of people
we're going to
haven't seen it. And once again, when you see it, you're, is this a Giallo? Can a Giallo be a Gothic? I don't know. I mean,
you guys
nobody.
Come over for
We got to come up with
comfortable night of watching Whip and Body.
Sure, I had Ship for a Honeymoon recently on a 16mm print from Mike too, and that was fun.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It wasn't a great movie, but it was fun, and it had some great kills.
I have that on DVD. Yeah. That's a cool movie. I'll tell you a crazy movie. Knife of Ice. That's one you really have.
Knife of Ice.
Knife of Ice.
We didn't do
it's
all
a Carol
of the
Baker
questions.
movie.
Was that one of them?
That was
Umberto
one of them.
Lenzi, who's better known for
his
cannibal films.
Yep.
Did that. He also did Seven Bloodstained Orchids, which is a very stylish film.
Bloodstained Shadow here, I'm not sure.
Very cool.
Because isn't that always the joke that that's the perfect murder weapon?
What?
Like a thing of ice, because it actually melts.
Exactly.
The murder device melts, and you'll never have evidence.
There's a Columbo episode based
that's
on
where
that.
I think. Yeah, I think that's where.
Bashing the. Oh, wait a second. It was. I can't think of his name. The actor who
Peter Falk.
Who got killed in that Columbo episode. He'll come back to me in a second. But he bashes him over the head with a big block of ice, then he throws the ice into the pool.
You're all set.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's really good.
This is a good.
Use that more often.
Hitchcock
we
probably
should
would like
try
that. I think he would enjoy that.
I think of others that a lot of people might not have seen. Who Saw Her Die is pretty cool.
Haven't seen that one yet. Of your own films that you've worked on, is there something you would recommend? Like if somebody's just curious, like of the things that are less that we didn't necessarily even touch on, is there something that you feel like you would want people to go out and search for, and like you feel like even just the one where you told I didn't know you worked with Charles Burnett, so To Sleep with Anger or something like that?
Oh well,
that you're particularly proud of.
Your films are kind of like kids, or pets.
Can't play favorites.
You love them all for different reasons, or hate them all for different reasons. Yeah. Everybody has a couple of. It's like, that one didn't quite work out. But I always try to get people to see Caught Up because that's a really kind of wacky.
Yeah, I don't know anything about
it. Yeah, it was my attempt to do a classic 40s or 50s film noir and place it in the 90s hood. So it got very polarized critical response because people who didn't really know film that well and just expected everything to be Boys from the Hood are like, what is this weird movie with a psychic and all of these crazy things? Bokeem Woodbine, Cinda Williams.
Wait a minute. The greatest performance of the year is Bokeem Woodbine in Fargo Season 2.
Oh, he's awesome.
That might be my favorite performance.
Jeff Combs is in this film, too.
Oh, cool.
And it gives one of Jeff Combs' most out there.
Yeah, we gotta see it.
Most out there, and it's kind of a black comedy too.
Okay.
But
Jeff's
very
always
bizarre.
I feel like anytime Jeff's in a movie, he makes black comedy.
And I mention it because I have a very distant Argento connection for it. And this critic who used to work for Box Office, and she still writes, Maitland McDonough.
Oh yeah, she's great. She wrote the book on.
She wrote the book on Argento.
Broken Mirrors, Broken Minds.
She really liked Caught Up and said that the visuals were crazy and out there. And I was like, if the person who wrote the book on Dario liked the visuals in my movie,
that's awesome.
I'm very happy. So I always wanted to meet her. Yeah.
I really want to see. So did you direct that one or produce?
Wrote and directed.
Oh, wrote and directed.
Okay, that was my first directing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bookie, did you watch season 2 of Fargo?
Oh, yeah.
Bokeem,
he was
blew
awesome.
my mind how good he was.
He was awesome.
He's one of those actors, sometimes you just don't notice an actor until a certain role comes along.
Yeah.
He's that actor for me this year. I was just like, when he said, I'm not a crook like Nixon, it was just hilarious. It's a damn great show. If you guys haven't seen Fargo,
it was amazing. He did a great job on it. I was proud of him.
All righty. Well, we could go on for a while.
We could
longer,
change topics each week with you.
but somebody has a we should have.
I have
Have
a
me
small
back anytime, guys.
I was going to say we'll have him back when if Jeff Burr's ever in town. We'll get both of you.
Oh,
on.
that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Oh, that would be
Where's
fun.
Jeff now?
He's in Georgia.
Yeah.
And
Been there for a while, right?
he's been there for several years. Would love to see him come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some
Just to
point.
visit. We'd love to have him on the show, and we'll bring you back
Every
for
once
sure.
in a while, he comes into town, and we have to put out secret agents and intelligence because Jeff will come to town and leave and not tell anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, he's this kind of guy. He's a great guy, but he'll do that. So you kind of say, put somebody.
We gotta catch him.
We need somebody at the airport. We need somebody. I mean, it's Tommy Lee Jones time. I want you to search every outhouse, airport, blah, 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 and we'll find that Jeff Burr.
All right, Georgians, if you see him at the airport, let us know.
Let us
Well,
know.
no, he's been requested. A lot of people would love to have him on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
People mention him. We love.
Well, me and you talk about how much we like Leatherface all the time, and
Love it,
it's so much fun,
Yeah.
especially the version with the gore that doesn't exist, but the clips we saw are amazing.
I was on set the night that they shot the battle in the pit between Ken
Yeah.
Foray and R.A. Mahaloff.
That's pretty wild.
That was awesome. I was like, "Jeez,
It's Jeff making
is the whole movie like this, dude?"
making a chainsaw movie. That's so cool. Well, thank you so much, Darin, for coming on and talking Giallos with us. Definitely look him up on. You can look him up on IMDb, but you could find most of his movies on Amazon and
There's a lot of them on Amazon.
check him
now.
out. I hope Tales from the Hood somehow resurfaces. Actually, call out to everyone out there. If you know anybody that collects film prints,
35
Please.
millimeter.
if anybody has a print of Tales from the Hood, let's make it happen. We got to get a
We
proper
need a
release of that.
Blu-ray.
We need a blue. All right.
Happen.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. We'll
Thanks
see
for
you
having me,
next week.
guys. It was
See
great.
you guys
Pleasure.
in hell, mother.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker.